Aita for snapping at a hotel receptionist after being given the wrong room 3 times. I was on a trip recently and booked a room at a fairly nice hotel. I specifically paid extra for a room with a king bed and a city view because it was supposed to be a relaxing getaway. When I checked in, they gave me a room with 2 twin beds and a view of the parking lot. I went back to the front desk, politely explained the issue, and they apologized, saying there was a mix-up. They gave me another room key, but when I got to that room, it still wasn't right. This time it was a queen bed with no view at all. I was annoyed but kept my cool and went back to the desk again. They apologized again and assured me the next room would be correct. Spoiler, it wasn't. The third room wasn't even cleaned yet. There were towels on the floor and an unmade bed. At that point, I was exhausted and frustrated. I went back to the front desk and snapped at the receptionist. I didn't yell or swear, but I raised my voice and told them it was ridiculous that I couldn't get the room I paid for after 3 tries. The receptionist looked flustered and said they were doing their best, but I wasn't really in the mood to hear it. They eventually upgraded me to a suite, but when I told a friend about the situation, they said I overreacted and that it wasn't the receptionist's fault because they don't control room assignments. I feel like I was justified in being upset, but now I'm wondering if I crossed a line. Aita. Stories number 2. My friend hit his daughter and broke her rib. I am absolutely furious right now. My friend has a daughter who is also in my 7th grade history class. She is the nicest kid in the world and one of the best students in any of my classes. However, this morning she came into my class late and was not herself. Normally she is raising her hand and engaging with the class, but she had her hoodie up and her head down. She was holding her arm to the side and looked to be in pain. Halfway through class I walked by her desk to check on her and she looked up at me and had tears in her eyes. I brought her outside my classroom and asked her what was wrong, but she was not responding, but she started crying even more. After a couple more minutes of reassurance she finally opened up. She woke up late for school and accidentally dropped a glass of water when she was getting ready. My friend, who is her father, punched her twice in the ribs and yelled at her for being clumsy. I asked her if she was hurt and she pulled her hoodie up and her ribs were beginning to bruise. My friend is 6 feet 4 inches and over 200 pounds. My student is 12 years old and cannot be more than 85 pounds. I asked my colleague in the next class to watch over my class and I took her to the health office where her mother picked her up. When she saw her daughter sitting in pain she nearly burned the office down. She started cursing my friend's name and said this was the last straw for her. She asked me not to file a report but I told her I was required to as I was shown evidence of abuse and her daughter used the word abuse which she begrudgingly understood. I am so mad right now. My friend has always had a short temper but hitting your child because she dropped a glass is beyond disgusting. My student's mother texted me at noon and said her daughter broke a rib and is going to be out of class until Wednesday. I feel awful for my student. She is such a bright kid and is well liked by her peers and now she is having trouble breathing because her father cannot act like an adult. I am ending my friendship with this man. He has been getting on my nerves for a while but I will be damned if I am friends with someone who hits their child. Update. Hi everyone, a lot of people wanted an update on my previous post here so here they are. The guidelines of my school district mandate that a police officer come whenever a child reports an instance of abuse. I am not going to go into detail for reasons of student confidentiality but there is a warrant going out for the arrest of her father. My student is home with her mother and grandparents and is recovering. One of her ribs is broken and she is in a lot of pain but she is breathing a lot better. Her mother and father are married but have been living apart for a couple of months. She has been floating the idea of divorcing him and she sent me a text message this morning saying she is going to file for divorce. Her mother is a really good person and she also reported moments of abuse between her husband. She has been able to find living arrangements and is able to support herself and her daughter. I have known her for 16 years. She would never lay a hand on her daughter. She is a good parent. My student's father blew up my phone last night saying I am destroying his family and to stay out of his business. I did not respond and blocked him. My student's mother walked into my classroom after school today to pick up any assignments for her daughter. She thanked me for reaching out to her daughter and said I saved her daughter and herself from a lifetime of abuse. She handed me a note and said her daughter wrote it. I read it when she left and started to cry. My student thanked me for recognizing that she was in pain. She felt comfortable talking to me since she has known me her entire life and knew I would act if she told me she was in danger. She called me her favorite teacher and said she will be prepared for class when she returns. I pray she fully recovers and is not deeply traumatized by this event. She is a good kid and needs to be loved and cared for by people who appreciate her. Edit. Her father was arrested this morning. He is no longer a threat right now. He did admit to driving by my apartment complex last night. I might have dodged a major bullet by leaving town for the weekend. I can relax a little bit. So can my student and her mother. Thank you for everyone who supported me through this situation. If you are being abused, please tell a teacher or counselor if you are in school. I understand that it is difficult to talk about such a topic, but we are here to help you. I know there are situations where some teachers do not assist the student, but please give yourself the chance to be helped. It can mean the difference between a lifetime of danger or the ability to escape your situation. My student came back to class yesterday and gave me a thank you. My student came back to class today. She was out all week with a broken rib after her father hit her. She was supposed to come back on Wednesday, but she wasn't ready, so they waited until yesterday. She walked into class with the biggest smile in the world. Her arm was in a sling, but she was not taking any deep breaths like she was last weekend. She sat down and participated in the class like nothing happened. She's so cool. After school she walked into my classroom and handed me a note and an envelope. In the envelope was a gift certificate to a nice Italian restaurant from her mother. She told me to take my girlfriend and daughter out to dinner this weekend. The note was her thanking me for recognizing she was in pain and acting on it. She knew she could trust me, and my actions went a long way for her, knowing she can go to someone she trusts if she is in distress. She wrote me a similar letter last week, but it was her reiterating what she said. She gave me a hug and left, and I closed the door and cried a little bit. She is very strong for a 12-year-old. I can tell this event is not going to affect her greatly. Her mother is working harder to be open with her, and she has a good family support system. Her father is in jail and will be for a long time. She's a special kid. She is by far my favorite student. I am ready to move on to the next chapter of my life. I have been teaching middle school history for the past 14 years, and I feel like I have reached the point where I need a new challenge. Teaching the same course for nearly 15 years has worn me out, and I decided I want something else. I applied for a position at a high school in my district where I taught for the first 5 years, and today I received the phone call that I got the job. I will be teaching U.S. history to 11th graders, and I am honestly excited. They want me to take over the AP United States History course in the future, which I am okay with. The new curriculum and scene is enticing to me, and I feel like I will be able to be myself in my new classroom. I will miss my colleagues and my students. There is a chance I will be their teacher again in the future, but that is not going to be for a while. This year was the most eventful year of my career, dealing with bomb threats, school shooting threats, a 15-person fight in a nearby classroom that spilled over into my classroom, and an incident where I reported a parent for child abuse has worn me down. I love this school, but I want to move on to the next phase of my life. I plan on proposing to my girlfriend this summer. We want to have another child and finally buy a house. We both will receive raises this year, and I genuinely believe she is the one I want to spend my life with. I am thinking of coaching baseball again if my schedule allows for it. I am happy. My life is busy, but I feel like I am building a good life for myself. Stories number 3. Should I, 21M, go for it with my brothers, 19M, girlfriend, 19F, if she's giving me all the signs? I'm on mobile, so sorry for the formatting. This is a throwaway account. I will call my brother Cody and my brother's girlfriend Sandra. This is so fucking messy. I am pretty close with my brother, but I honestly feel he doesn't deserve his girlfriend. So my brother and his girlfriend have come to our grandma for a week they have off. They have been here for 5 days. They won't leave for 3 more, and it's killing me. My little brother is not the best looking in the family. He's just not. Since he started seeing Sandra, he's gone to the gym and bulked up a bit and changed his hair and his eating habits. Not because she forced him, she loved him even when he was chubby. He said he wanted to start working out and eating better to get into the same level of attractiveness as her. My best friend and I, she is a girl, and I both agreed beforehand that she is very good looking, just from her pictures with my brother on social media and stuff. Sandra and Cody came to visit my grandmother, and I was there because I'm currently living with her. Not only is she ridiculously hot, she's funny and smart too. She's pre-med and is taking a lot of hard classes that Cody says she's breezing through. She is the world's easiest person to talk to. The first night she came to visit she was quiet, as this was the first time meeting extended family for her. The next day Cody had a migraine, and she wanted to stay home with him and take care of him, but I convinced her to go to the mall with me and Cody encouraged her to. We spent the day at the mall together. We played with puppies at a store and shopped a bit and got lunch. I don't think I've ever gotten along with someone as well as I've gotten along with Sandra. She is beautiful, witty, and basically my ideal partner. I have quickly developed strong feelings for her. It gets really fucking messy from here. Cody was showing me some memes on his phone and accidentally swiped by a nude of hers. He thought I wasn't looking at his phone, but he did manage to see it. I know this is really bad, but when he got up to go to the bathroom I unlocked his phone and went to look at it. I couldn't help myself. I've already mentioned that I think she's hot, so I won't go into detail about how I felt about the picture because it's probably obvious. I felt so guilty about it. After this incident I think people started noticing me becoming uncomfortable near her. My brother, my mom and my grandma asked me about it. Eventually, Sandra asked me if she had done anything to offend me and I said no. I came to my senses and stopped acting like a douche. I asked if she wanted to go to the grocery store with me. She said sure. I thought it would just be the two of us, but Cody tagged along as well. We went to the grocery store together, went back and ended up driving to the city in the afternoon. I don't want to give away anything that might identify me, which is an hour from where we live. Cody fell asleep in the car and again it was Sandra and me talking. She ended up climbing from the back seat to the front to talk to me. We talked and joked the whole way into the city and I just knew something was there. I did something stupid and I told her that I wished we'd met in high school, and she replied that she thinks we would have been best friends. Ouch. However, once we reached the city she was back being lovey-dovey with Cody. It sucked because I wanted to hold her hand so bad. I think they felt bad for me because yesterday was V-Day and I don't have a girlfriend, so they didn't kiss or anything, they just looked at each other like they're in love. My questions are the following. I know she can tell that we have a good connection, so should I go for it? I really want to tell her my feelings this evening. What's the best way to do that? Thanks. TL, I have strong feeling for my little brother's girlfriend. She's a beautiful, funny, smart woman and we really get along. We both acknowledged it. Should I go for it? What is the best way to let her know how I feel? Update. Formatting mobile blah blah. Throwaway blah blah. My brother is Cody and his GF is Sandra. So against Reddit's, and my, better judgment, I spoke to my brother. As you can imagine, all hell broke loose. The guilt was eating me up and I told him about the feelings I had for his girlfriend. I also came clean about looking at her nudes and apologized profusely. This was about 3 hours ago. My brother punched me in the face and busted my lip. He went to our grandma and told her that he didn't feel comfortable with me in the house. My poor grandma was so confused and Cody told her vaguely that I acted inappropriately with Sandra and violated her boundaries. He went into Sandra's room and asked her to pack her things so they could leave and find a hotel to stay in. All I could hear was her saying, "What? Why? What's wrong?" He took her and left to stay in Atlanta, promising my grandma he'd call and explain when he got there. He just called via her landline and they will be getting lunch tomorrow. I received a text from Sandra about a half hour ago. I copy-pasted it. Honestly, this is ridiculous that I even have to say this. You violated Cody's trust and my trust. The pics weren't meant for your eyes. I love your brother, not you, it's never gonna happen. You've ruined any possible friendship we could have. I am not angry but I can't forgive this, and I believe you need therapy. Good luck, my name. I hope you get the help you need. I am sitting here bawling in bed while my grandma knocks on the door to ask what's wrong. Reddit, what do I do? What are the steps to take to fix things with my brother? How do I apologize to Sandra? What do I tell my poor grandmother? Thanks in advance. I should have listened to your advice. TLDR, told my brother I have feelings for his girlfriend and that I snooped on his phone for her nudes. After I confessed, he hit me and took her from my grandma's house where we were all staying. How do I fix this with my brother and how do I apologize to his girlfriend? What do I tell my grandma about the situation, as she knows nothing as of right now? Thanks. Stories number 4. Aita for suing my brother over a family heirloom he gave to his fiancée. I come from a family where heirlooms mean a lot. Our grandmother left us an antique diamond necklace that's been passed down for generations to the first daughter in the family. Since I'm the only daughter of this generation, it was supposed to come to me. My brother claimed grandma told him in private that it should go to him instead because he's the most responsible. I didn't want to cause drama, so I let it go, even though it felt unfair. Last week, I saw on social media that my brother gave the necklace to his fiancée as an engagement gift. She posted a picture wearing it with the caption, "Feeling like royalty with my new family heirloom." I confronted my brother and reminded him the necklace was meant to stay in the family. He said, "She is family now. Don't be petty." When I asked for it back, he refused, saying it would ruin their engagement. I decided to take legal action to get the necklace back. Now my brother is furious and calling me selfish. My parents think I'm overreacting, but some extended family members are on my side, saying he never had the right to give it away. His fiancée even messaged me, calling me a jealous drama queen and telling me to find my own man to buy me jewelry. The whole thing has caused a family feud, and now my brother and his fiancée are threatening to uninvite me from the wedding. Aita for taking this to court over a necklace that was supposed to be mine. Stories number 5. Aita for refusing to pay for my daughter's wedding after finding out her fiancé used to bully my son. I, 50M, have 2 kids, my daughter, 25F, who is getting married next year, and my son, 23M, who came out as gay in high school. My son had a really rough time in school. He was bullied relentlessly, and it took a toll on his mental health. He's doing much better now, but those years left scars. Last month, my daughter introduced us to her fiancé, 27M. I recognized him immediately as one of the kids who made my son's life hell. When I quietly brought it up to my son later, he confirmed it but told me not to make a big deal about it because he's moved on. Here's the thing, I haven't moved on. I can't stand the thought of helping pay for a wedding to someone who tormented my son. I told my daughter this, and she said her fiancé has changed and regrets his actions. She asked me to let it go for her sake. I said I'm happy for her but that I can't, in good conscience, fund the wedding. Now, my daughter is furious with me and claims I'm punishing her for something she had no part in. My wife thinks I should reconsider, but I feel like funding this wedding would betray my son. My son is staying neutral and says he doesn't want to be the reason for family drama, but I can tell the situation is making him uncomfortable. My daughter says I'm ruining her big day and being petty. Aita. Stories number 6. I just told off an anti-vaxer and it felt incredible. I was at urgent care and some senior citizen was running her ignorant mouth about COVID. She said she believes it was an attempt by the government to control global population. She also said she almost died from it. She said, just like the Spanish flu 100 years ago, those who survived had lifetime immunity, so who gives a fuck about those people that died, I guess. I'd had enough at this point. She was just talking to whoever was polite enough to listen. Not me. I said, what are you talking about? COVID? You are still talking about COVID after 5 years? Just stop. No one cares what you think or believe. I have had to put up with that nonsense, with your nonsense, for years. I am done. Keep it to yourself. You don't know what you are saying. It felt so good. She was clutching her pearls and saying things like, I don't even know you, and, you don't have to listen, and I said, you're right, I don't, but I can still hear you, so please just be quiet. 2025 is the year of not giving a fuck. I am getting an early start. Stories number 7. I want Christmas to be over so I can tell my husband I'm moving out. Follow up to my previous post. The day after Christmas I told my husband I was leaving. All of a sudden he's willing to change everything to make me happy. He's saying he'll do individual counseling to work on his issues. He's saying all the things. I am so annoyed that it took me leaving to be willing to change. Why didn't he take me seriously when I cried and told him I was unhappy a couple months ago? He is making me doubt my decision. Which is the whole goal, right? I need to make a decision, but the confusion has set in. Can he change? Will the changes last? Is it worth it to keep working on this? Would it be easier to just start over with someone new? I don't know the answers to these questions, but will need to get my shit together and make decisions soon. Once again, just wanted to tell someone. Stories number 8. Aita for telling my sister that a pregnancy announcement doesn't count as a Christmas present. My 32M family gets together every year for Christmas for a week or so at a popular vacation spot in our state. This has been a tradition since I was a kid, and every year we do a secret Santa exchange. Anyone over 18 is put into the pool, which helps cut down on expenses as you only need to purchase a present for one adult instead of all the siblings, parents, aunts, uncles, etc. Kids and teens under 18 would get individual presents, but the youngest is my sister who is 24F, so it hasn't come up for a while. My sister, Heather, 24F, is the one who had my name this year. She gave me a positive pregnancy test wrapped up to look like a DVD set of my favorite show. I unwrapped it and congratulated her, but was curious about what happened to the DVDs. I thought maybe she had they set aside, since she had the packaging for the box set. She got mad and told me that her present to me and the family was the pregnancy, and that she didn't have the DVDs. I told her that I was happy for her, but felt a little cheated. The secret Santa presents are supposed to be either handmade or between $50 and $100, so they're usually high-quality presents. Also, Heather didn't tell any of us that she was trying to get pregnant. She isn't married, and we don't love her boyfriend, so it was kind of mixed news anyways. I get that she was trying to be cute, but Aita for expecting the DVDs / a real present. Her present from my aunt was a $100 gift card to a spa she loves, for reference. My parents think I should just be happy there will be a niece or nephew, but it still doesn't seem fair, and I just don't think a niece or nephew in 6 months counts as a secret Santa present. Stories number 9. Aita for letting my friend cancel her plane ticket after we argued about her bringing her new boyfriend on our girls' trip. So, my best friend and I have been planning a girls' trip to Barcelona for months. We've always talked about doing this, and it was something we were both really excited about. The plan was simple, just the two of us, catching up, exploring the city, and enjoying some time together. But about 2 weeks before our flight, she started seeing someone new. I didn't know him very well, but she was constantly talking about him, and it was clear she was really into him. Then, she told me she was thinking about inviting him to come along with us on the trip. I didn't think much of it at first, but as she kept pushing the idea, I got uncomfortable. This was supposed to be a girls' trip, and I honestly didn't want a third person, especially her boyfriend, tagging along. I tried to be understanding but told her that I was really looking forward to some quality time with her, just the two of us. She got upset and said I was being unreasonable, that I should be happy she found someone special, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I felt like I wasn't being unreasonable, though. This was supposed to be our time, and I didn't want the dynamic to shift. The argument went back and forth for a couple of days. I kept telling her I was looking forward to our plans, just the two of us, and she kept insisting that her boyfriend could just come for a couple of days and it wouldn't be a big deal. I didn't agree, and eventually, she said that if I wasn't okay with it, she'd just cancel the whole trip. I thought she was bluffing, but she actually went ahead and canceled her ticket. She told me that if I wasn't going to let her bring her boyfriend, she wasn't going at all. I didn't want to lose my best friend over this, but I also felt like I was right to want some time alone with her, especially since this was something we planned for so long. Now I feel guilty but also frustrated. I didn't want the trip to fall apart, but I also didn't think I was wrong for wanting it to just be the two of us. Was I out of line, or is she being too dramatic? Aita. Stories number 10. Aita for refusing to ski with child of wife's friend when it became clear they exaggerated his skill level. I, 48M, have a vacation house adjacent to a ski area. I've owned it since before I met my wife and had kids, 11M and 13M. The kids have grown up skiing 25 to 35 days a year, do lots of lessons, and as a result they are both excellent skiers. My wife invited a colleague, Annie, and her family, including a 12-year-old son, Tom, to come out after Christmas for a few days. My kids aren't friendly with Tom. To my wife's chagrin, she is weirdly invested in being regarded by this woman as a friend, and having a friendship between the kids would help, largely because the boy cannot help himself from trying to one-up all his peers, often with obvious fabulism. His parents tend to indulge his exaggerations. We've more than once heard how great he is at some skill or hobby, only to discover he is a notch above a tyro. The parents want to spend their time out here cross-country skiing. My wife said she'd accompany them, and then told me that I could take their son along with my kids when we were to go downhill skiing. My wife related that Jane told her Tom is a good skier. My kids both gave me a look. We all knew it is likely Tom is very far from a good skier. I told me wife I was not going to sacrifice our holiday ski time babysitting the son of a colleague I didn't want her to invite in the first place. She insisted I take him. The compromise we reached is that I would show Jane and Tom what sort of terrain we intended to ski. If they attested he could do it, I'd take him, but if it turned out he was not capable, she would need to pick him up and figure out what to do with him for the rest of the visit. For example, they could enroll him in skill-appropriate group lessons. Just as my kids and I suspected, Jane and Tom told us he was an excellent skier and would have no trouble keeping up. And likewise, in line with our hunch, the moment we went to drop into a bowl, he freaked out and wouldn't do it. I called my wife to come get him. She said they were mid-cross-country and couldn't make it. I said that was not what we agreed. I took Tom to the lodge and put him in kindercare, which usually only goes up to age 7, but since I know a lot of the staff at the mountain, they took him, and left a voicemail for my wife to let her and Tom's parents know. We skied for 3 hours and never heard from them. We stopped by kindercare on the way out and Tom was still there, unhappy. Jane, her husband, and my wife were not happy when they finally got in touch and learned what I did. I told them that Tom was not capable of keeping up, that it's not surprising or a bad reflection on Tom, because my kids have had a very unusual amount of skiing experience. But the fact is that I was very clear about the difficulty level of what we intended to ski, and we could have made other arrangements for Tom if they had been honest about his skill level. So, was this an move or reasonable? Adding, to clarify a few things. I did mention to my wife the possibility of getting Tom an instructor for the day, but she was kind of like, no, let's see how it goes first. Annie says he is a good skier. Given that a 3-hour private now costs around $400, I can see why Annie might not be enthusiastic about that. There are some youth groups, too, but they have been long fully booked up. I did get a short opportunity to see Tom ski easy terrain, on our way over to the lift that serves the bowl and on the road to the bowl, and he seemed like an intermediate skier. The bowl we were trying is the easiest on the mountain. Stories number 11. My friends, M29, wife, F28, who I thought was also my friend embarrassed me, F25, in front of all of our mutual friends, FM20s 30s. Posting this again since I'm new to Reddit and have no idea how to use it. I'm so embarrassed right now, but I do not think I did anything wrong. Let me explain the situation. I have had the same mutual friend group since I graduated college 3 years ago. It's a group of people I met through my best friend Jenna, F25, who was my sorority sister in college. Included in the friend group is her older brother, M29, Joe and his wife Diana, F28. I considered both of them my friends, too, but would say I was closer to Joe as he's Jenna's brother. Diana hosted a birthday dinner for Joe over the weekend. Our mutual friends were there, but so was Jenna and his family. I was happy to get to know some of the people I hadn't met. I know his parents well and caught up well with them too. Diana and Joe also had a child recently and I did see him a few times too. He's adorable. When we were sitting down after dinner, Diana freaked out on me. She yelled at me, in front of everyone, to stop flirting with her husband, stop touching him, and to not come into her house and be disrespectful. People got quiet after this, before my best friend started talking about something else. I left shortly after. I truly don't think I did anything disrespectful throughout the night. I, of course, talked to the birthday boy a lot. Everyone was. I don't remember touching him too much, but it was close quarters so I did brush up against him a few times. I did give him a big hug when I saw him and later when I gave him his gift. That is it. I texted Jenna and she said that I should talk to Diana and Joe about it, but that I should keep distance with him for now because she's never seen Diana this angry. I was supposed to attend their parents' anniversary party but she told me that wouldn't be a good idea right now. I am a very friendly person, but I respect people's personal boundaries. If anyone had an issue before, they could have mentioned it to me. I have not changed this in the past 3 years, since I've met both Joe and Diana. I am so embarrassed that she basically accused me of trying to sleep with her husband in front of all of our friends and his family. I feel like I can't show my face now. TLDR, my friend's wife who I thought was also my friend yelled at me in front of everyone and embarrassed me. What can I do? I am so embarrassed. Update, Jenna and I just FaceTime for the past like 40-ish minutes. She said that she talked to her SIL, Diana, and her brother over the weekend. This is what her SIL said. She sent me a screenshot. I am always touching and always flirting with Joe. I'm rude to her, ignoring her and not saying hi when I go over to their house. I've texted Joe late at night, even though he had a pregnant wife at home and now a young baby. On his birthday, I went to their house, barely said anything to her, went to see their baby, I hadn't met him yet. Got him all worked up but had enough time to take a picture for Instagram, and then she had to spend the next 15 minutes calming him down. When she came back out, she saw us in a corner, alone, me giving him his gift and hugging him. I touched him other times throughout the night and no one else had that problem. I did not talk to her at dinner, she was on the opposite end of the table, so of course not, yet I was joking and flirting with her husband. She said I am not welcome in her home again. She said her brother said that he's sorry his wife yelled at me because he was the one who she should have been yelling at. Diana asked him multiple times to pull back on our friendship because I was being rude to her and I was always touching him and he said nothing. He'll now be doing that apparently. No one ever called me out about these things and I still think that Diana is reading a lot more into everything than there was. I did not purposely ignore her, I always talked to her, I just know Joe better and felt more comfortable with him. She's always been preoccupied with her pregnancy and now their son, so I haven't seen her as much. Stories number 12. He wanted alone time. So now he's getting it. My 30F husband, 31M, has become more of a recluse lately. To the point where me even asking to spend time with him has been met with eye rolls and heavy sighs. Fed up with feeling neglected, I confronted him the other night and told him that I'm not some toy that he can pick up and spend time with whenever he feels like, and that it isn't fair to me. He couldn't understand that somehow when he spends weeks pushing people away, like his family or me, that we aren't all going to be super happy and ready with open arms to suddenly hang out when he wants to. Something finally clicked and he came to me crying, hugging me, and apologizing. Or so I thought. Fast forward to last night, and I came up to him again asking to spend time. Maybe just as simple as a 30-minute card game or watching a movie. He huffed and puffed and said I kept interrupting him and he just wants to game. He said, I never get any alone time. You're always home, and it's never just me. Which is partially true, I will admit. I am at home a lot since college break and me working casually. But, I reminded him that he spent the entire day playing video games, and he will still be playing video games all by himself, uninterrupted, for the next 5 hours after I go to bed. I asked him how after 13 hours of gaming, that he doesn't have any time to do the things he wants. He fell silent. So I told him today I'm giving him the whole day to himself. He's going to wake up by himself, go grocery shopping by himself, cooking by himself, and house chores by himself, and all the gaming he wants. Completely uninterrupted. Because where will I be? I'll be going to the gym, getting a coffee, window shopping, and getting dinner without him. He says, but I want you to be with me while I do stuff. Sorry pal. You don't get your cake and eat it too. I'm giving him his complete alone time. He'll be getting exactly what he asked for, and I'll be treating myself to a day of self-respect. Edit 1, you guys are right. I'm going longer than a day. I will be extending this for a week. I also believe you guys are right that he could be addicted to gaming. As for the depression, I don't think that's the case, but as someone with anxiety, I'm always on the lookout if it starts to appear that way. I think I don't give him enough time to sit in his discomfort. When he says, well, it sounds like you think I'm just an ass. And I try to reassure him that he isn't, because I don't want to feel like I'm emotionally abusing him. But he needs to sit with those feelings. If he is feeling like a dick, he probably is, and I need to stop sparing his feelings because it's only hurting me more. Edit 2, after reading more comments, it is starting to sound like he is depressed. I'm sure he isn't even aware that he is depressed since it's not displaying as traditional depression. I will have a word with him after the week is up. Depression is an awful thing, but it is not an excuse to treat the people who care about you poorly. He needs to seek help. Edit 3, it's been about 6 hours since he last saw me, and he's already texting me that he misses me. I am 100% aware that this is a manipulation to get me to come back home early on my Independence Day, but I'm surprised he caved so soon. I told him that I'm sorry he felt that way, and I told him honestly that I wasn't missing him. Possible depression or not, I'm not going to come back to him the moment he shows me an ounce of desire or fondness. I'm done trying to make a meal out of crumbs from him. I'm not responsible for his happiness and he can't keep me from mine. Stories number 13. Aita for breaking up with my girlfriend after she said she doesn't want to have kids but I do. For those who wanted to affirm the desire to have children and family or went through the same and offered to talk and support with personal advice, would it be possible for you to DM? It'll take me a while to read and respond to such comments. I'm thankful nevertheless. I, 34M, have been with my girlfriend, 30F, for 3 years. From the start, we talked about our future, and I made it clear that I want to have kids eventually. She seemed okay with it, saying she was open to it, but as time went on, I realized she was just stringing me along. Last week, we had a big talk, and she finally admitted that she doesn't want kids ever. She even went as far as to say, I'm not one of those women who thinks motherhood will magically complete me, that's why I had to abort our last one because I'm sure of myself. At first, I was shocked, thinking I might irked her for some reason or maybe it was just a temporary feeling, but then in morning she dropped another bombshell, I'm happy with my life as is. If you really want kids, we should probably go our ways. She said no woman in her right mind want kids. Is that true? Are all women like this? Then I do not have any hope of making a family ever. I was devastated. She knew this was something I wanted. I've supported her dreams, her career, even moved cities to be with her. Yet, when it comes to something so fundamental to envision a life together, she tells me it means nothing for her to have a baby. I asked her then why did she always insisted on having unprotected sex. She said it was purely a sexual desire like our other kinks. I'm too confused at this point. I thought we were like one body and soul, but she feels so distant and strange all of a sudden. What hurt the most was when she said, if you leave me over this, then maybe you never loved me in the first place. Like, seriously? That felt like an emotional manipulation tactic, trying to guilt-trip me into staying in a relationship where we're clearly not on the same page. I had a terrible mother who didn't love her children and I felt that convincing her would be a bigger failure if she didn't adore my kids in future. So I broke up with her. She's been calling and texting non-stop, crying about how I destroyed everything, but I feel it was me who built everything and she is the one who destroyed us. I'm overwhelmed with this spiraling of gaslighting and not accepting that this is a breaking point. I've been so invested in nurturing this relationship and supporting her with her many issues over the years that I've lost good friends and have no one to reach for solace or support. Just feeling crushed and hopeless towards finding anyone at this age and making a family together. Stories number 14. MITA for allowing my BL to be thrown out of my house on Christmas after he insulted my brother who has Down syndrome. Updated. My hubby, M40, and I, F35, have been together 10 years, married for 5. We bought a fixer-upper 2 years ago and finally completed upgrades and repairs just in time to host Christmas. Both sides of the family came. My parents, my brother Frank, M30, and his girlfriend now fiancée, Lila, F29, and my hubby's parents and his brother, Todd, M32. Since it's relevant, I'll mention that my brother, Frank, has Down syndrome. He also graduated from HSN college, he has his BA in early childhood education, he also has his own apartment, and his own car. He works full-time as a preschool teacher, and his job loves him. I have freaking amazing parents, and when Frankie was born, their attitude was, you'll do as much as you're encouraged to do, and we all invested heavily in helping Frank be all he can be. Which is a lot. I never felt left out or forgotten by my folks, by the way. They worked really hard to make sure we both had a great childhood. My hubby and Frank are total brothers LOL. Frank was his best man in our wedding, and after being friends with Frankie for a few years, he switched his job as a HS English teacher to a special education teacher. It required some extra schooling, but my dude loves his job so much now, and he's so happy. So obviously, Frank is popular in the family. At the party, I knew my hubby and Frank were up to something, because they were whispering a lot and grinning. Right before dessert, Frank stood up and talked about how this year has been the best of his life. He said he wished he could keep his life this way forever. My hubby pipes up with, if you like it then you better put a ring on it, and tossed Frank a ring box. He got down on one knee and asked Lila to marry him. She, of course, said heck yes. It was so touching and honestly, everyone was crying and hugging and so excited. I noticed my BL Todd wasn't smiling and looked pretty irritated. Todd is single, probably because he enjoys Andrew Tate so much, and he and my hubby have never been close. When we all stopped hugging and sat down, Todd muttered, finally, under his breath. Everyone heard it though, because he absolutely meant us to. I asked if there was a problem. He said, and I quote, I'm not that interested in celebrating two retarded people pretending they can have a real life. I almost caught a charge, because I about punched him. Frank just laughed at him and asked, still single, huh, which made everyone laugh. Todd stepped towards him and my hubby told him to sit down and shut up. He also told him he's an embarrassment. Todd got mad, and told my hubby that the embarrassment was how he pretended that Frank and Lila are actually functioning adults. At that, my hubby stood up, yanked Todd's chair out, and told him to get the hell out of our house. He told him he didn't want to see his face or hear his voice until he sincerely apologized to Frank and Lila. Todd started to refuse to leave, so I got my phone out and told him I was calling the cops to escort him out if he refused to leave on his own. He's been in Dutch with the cops a few times for drunk and disorderlies and assault, so that got him to peel out quick. Hubby's parents were clearly embarrassed by Todd's behavior, and they left a few minutes later, after apologizing to Frank and Lila. We told them they were more than welcome to stay, but they left anyhow. This morning I woke up to a bunch of texts from Todd, demanding I talk to my hubby and fix this. I told him no, and blocked him. Then my MIL called and asked me to talk to hubby. I was kind about it, but I said no. I told her it's between hubby and Todd, and I respected my husband's feelings. She got upset and said that her family is getting torn apart and I'm allowing it. I told her again I was sorry, but that Todd is totally responsible for this, and she needed to take it up with him. She hung up crying. I still don't think hubby and I were wrong here at all. But I truly like my MIL and those tears definitely got to me. But I refuse to let my brother and best friend be abused in my home. AITA here. Update, Todd is on Reddit and loves the Aita group. He talked about it at Christmas. That's pretty much why I posted this. He's seen this and my MIL called and asked me to remove it. I said no. She says that this is mean. I told her Todd is meaner and I'm done. I told her the post stays up and that I'm never asking hubby to meet with them again. I am I know, for encouraging my hubby to have contact with them, and I've apologized. Frank's opinion on all this is that he hasn't wasted time on asses in the past and he's not starting now. I apologize to him too, for inviting my idiot BIL in the first place. Lila is as snarky as Frank and she told me no cake for him. LOL, she's the best. I'm MOH, so I'm working hard to come up with ways to make this proposal nonsense up to her. Someone said this couldn't be true because no one would act like we did after Todd's comment. My response is that you don't know Frank. I think you suspect he's childish and throws fits when he's upset. you couldn't be more wrong. His stated attitude about people like Todd is that he refuses to act stupid just because someone else chooses to. As for everything else, yes, my hubs is the best. I had a ridiculously privileged childhood and I know that and am grateful. Stories number 15. My 26F boyfriend, 36M, has started acting distant and ghosting me after meeting my parents, 49M and 50F, last week. How do I reach out to him? My boyfriend Derek, fake name, and I met through mutual friends 6 months ago and we immediately hit it off. He is sweet, funny, kind and just generally a good guy. He is super extroverted and I have never seen him dislike or not click with anyone. I mentioned him to my parents a couple times and they said they were excited to meet him. My parents live a road trip away so me and Derek had to book a hotel nearby. About 2 weeks ago we dropped all of our stuff in the hotel and arrived at my parents' house. My parents are the most welcoming people you'll ever meet. They have met some of my past significant others in the past and have always been warm and kind. Since both my parents and Derek are charismatic and welcoming, I thought that dinner would go smoothly, but I was wrong. It didn't start off too bad. My parents and Derek seemed a bit awkward but I assumed he was just nervous. We sat for dinner and my parents asked us a couple questions: how did we meet, how serious is the relationship, etc. I've never seen Derek stutter or hesitate before this dinner but he did. As soon as I finished eating he thanked my parents for dinner and said we had to go. It felt like he was rushing to get out of the house. When we got to the hotel room he ran to the bathroom and I heard him throw up. He said he felt sick and he was going to head back home but he insisted I stayed and enjoyed the rest of the trip without him. I agreed since I really missed my parents and he seemed to want to be alone. I texted him a couple times asking how he was doing / if he felt better but he didn't reply. After 2 days passed I started to get really worried that maybe he was really sick and had to go to the hospital or something, so I cut the trip short and headed back home. I went to his apartment and saw he was okay. I asked him how he was doing and why he wasn't replying and he said he felt fine and that I was overreacting. He told me he still felt sick and he wanted to be alone. I went back home and texted him asking if I did anything wrong and if our relationship was okay since he was acting so weird and cold. A week has gone by since the text message and he has not replied. Derek is the last person I'd expect to ghost me. I'm torn between wanting to give him space and wanting answers. How do I even reach out to him without pushing him further away? TLDR, took my boyfriend to meet my parents. It was super awkward. He got sick and went home early and has been ghosting me since. Update. Hey Reddit, sorry I didn't reply to that many of your comments. They were mostly just saying Derek was secretly my brother, which is horrifying, so I wasn't sure how to reply. I tried to reply to questions when I saw them pop up. The past few days have been a mess, but now that everything is settled I thought I would go on here and update all of you. I took you guys' advice and decided to speak to my parents rather than Derek to discover if maybe they said anything or knew each other in the past, like many of you suggested they might. 4 days ago, I called my mom and told her about Derek's weird reaction after our dinner. I asked for advice or if she knew what happened. She was silent for a moment and I heard her start crying. She started apologizing and I didn't understand what she was trying to tell me at first. Eventually, I got her to calm down and she told me what had happened. My mom is a high school teacher and apparently Derek was her student in his senior year and she told me that they had an affair. She didn't give me that many details. Honestly, I don't even want to know. All she said is that they only slept together once before she shut it down and that my father knew and they had attended couples counseling years ago to work through this. She cried a lot and said it was her greatest regret. Then she told me she wanted me to break it off with Derek because he brought back really awful memories and she found the age gap concerning. She's one to talk about age gaps. But ultimately she said it was decision and she didn't want her past mistakes to ruin my relationship. I went to Derek's apartment again and he invited me in. He said he had to tell me something but I stopped him and told him I had already talked to my mom and knew everything. He promised me he had no idea up until the point we had come over for dinner where he immediately recognized her. He apologized for ghosting me and said he just didn't know what to say and he was scared that he would ruin my relationship with my parents or maybe ruin their marriage. I forgave him but told him that the whole situation was just way too messy for me and he agreed. So yeah, that's how my past few days have gone down. Honestly, I do kind of miss Derek but not too much since the whole banging my mom thing is a massive turn off. Thank you for all the replies. I feel like I will never see my mom the same again. How can I work on rebuilding our relationship and trust moving forward? TLDR, my mom, a teacher, had an affair with Derek who was her student back in his senior year. Because of this me and Derek broke up. How can I work on rebuilding my relationship with my mom? Stories number 16. Aita for being creeped out by my uncle's birthday gift to me. Hi everyone, I am a 15-year-old girl. I live with my dad and uncle. My mother is out of the family picture. It was my birthday yesterday and I got lots of great gifts from my dad. However, my uncle got me a gift which really creeped me out. He bought me a pair of Victoria's Secret underwear. Nothing crazy like a G-string thong, but definitely on the more sexy side of underwear you can buy from there. It was kinda awkward opening it in front of him/my dad at the time, but I said thank you and gave him a hug. But afterwards, the more I think about it, the more weird it is to me. Couldn't he have given me a Victoria's Secret gift card or something similar instead? I spoke to my dad about it and he said I was being ungrateful and it's not weird. Please can someone help me? Stories number 17. Aita for going on a trip without my girlfriend since she forgot her passport. My girlfriend, 23F, and I, 25M, planned a week-long trip overseas in Japan during this winter. I reminded her the day before we left a few days ago to remember to pack her passport and she said she would. Anyway, the first airport we left from, the airport in our hometown, was domestic, meaning it only served flights in our country, the United States, so we both just showed our state IDs for that and flew through just fine. When we were checking in for the second flight though, the international one, we booked tickets for the two flights separately. For some reason, they asked to see her passport. She said she didn't have it and told me she realized midway during the first flight that she forgot to pack it. Since we were far away from our home, she couldn't just go home quickly to grab her passport. We were both obviously upset, but I checked in anyway and told her that I'll still go without her. She got upset and asked me why I'd abandon her over a simple mistake, and I told her that I wasn't going to miss out on a trip just because she planned poorly. I told her that since we had a mutual friend, 24M, who lived in the city we were in currently, and she could ask him if she could stay with him and explore for a week, and then I'd catch her when flying back and we'd go home. She agreed but was still upset because she wanted to spend New Year's with me. A few hours ago I FaceTimed her and we talked for a bit, and our friend joined in the call and said he was shocked I'd abandon her like that and that he was disappointed in me. My girlfriend agreed with him. Am I really a bad boyfriend for still going on this trip? Like, if I chose to not go anyway, it wouldn't even be benefiting her at all really, it would only be hurting me. Aita for this. Stories number 18. Aita for accepting jewelry from my sisters that belonged to our mom when it symbolizes the end of our relationship. I, 19F, have two younger sisters, Sarah, 16, and Leah, 15. When we were younger, 5, 6, and 9, our mom died. She had left us each 3 of her most sentimental pieces of jewelry. I got her locket, her family bracelet, and a ring she owned. Sarah got her name necklace, a pair of earrings she wore to everything, and a bracelet Dad bought her. While Leah got 2 necklaces Mom had since her teens that she wore on certain occasions, and a ring that she felt was good luck. 2 years after Mom died, our dad met Cindy and they got married. Sarah and Leah loved her fast and started calling her Mom. I always called her Cindy and didn't even say she was my stepmom. My sisters hated it and they told me I should call her Mom too and we should make this a family. They said they loved her and wanted it to be the same as it was before, when Mom was alive. I told them I didn't love Cindy and didn't want things to be the same with her. I told them it could never be. Mom was too important. Cindy and I did get along fine for years. But then she was upset with me because my sisters made a big deal about being adopted by her without me, and after that things became strained. My sisters never forgave me for ruining how they felt their adoption should go. They said it was like I only cared about Mom and loved her the most. I said I loved the two of them, Dad and Mom the same. They said I loved Mom more than Cindy, and I said the difference still was that I loved Mom period. Sarah told me I wasn't their sister anymore that time and that I was an outsider nobody wanted. I left some stuff when I moved out and started college, and my sisters went through my journal. I had wrote in my journal how much them calling Cindy Mom hurt me and how I wish my dad had never met Cindy and it had stayed the 4 of us. This was a journal I kept when I was 13. They also found the page I wrote the day of Dad and Cindy's wedding where I wrote everything that was better about my mom over Cindy. They sent me photos of pages that they found the worst, including the ones I mentioned, and told me I was an evil bitch and they couldn't believe I would write any of that or even think Cindy wasn't good enough and amazing and perfect. I told them they had no business going through my old journal. My dad, when I told him, took the journal and sent me that and another notebook that had some journal-like stuff inside. He also talked to my sisters, but they were so angry. When I went home for Christmas last year, they told me they liked it better when I wasn't around because they could be a real family and they didn't have to deal with me treating Cindy like she was just a woman Dad married. They said I ruined our family and that they hated Mom because I loved her so much. Dad was furious with them, but for months I didn't speak to them at all. And I only spoke to them once this summer when I visited for a day. They told me Cindy had breast cancer and I should have dropped out of school to be there for her. I tried to ask if they were okay and if they were scared, but they said I was making it about Mom when my mind went there, and they told me to fuck off. Dad didn't know about that conversation. I didn't see them or speak to them again until the 24th. I dropped off stuff for them and stayed for lunch before going to my grandparents for the rest of Christmas. While I was there my sisters brought the jewelry Mom wanted them to have and they told me to take it. They said if I did it showed I would never accept Cindy like everyone wanted and I would be no longer their sister and they wanted nothing to do with me. Dad was there and tried to talk it down. They said they'd wanted to throw it in the trash and make me suffer but they wanted to see what I'd do. I knew they meant it all so I took it and I left. Dad told me he was going to get them more extensive therapy, they've already been going for years, and try to fix this but I don't think it can be done. They both text me now and say I'm the worst sister and daughter, to Cindy, and how dare I do this. That I should have let the jewelry go in the trash. Aita. Stories number 19. Saw my ex for the first time after a year. I knew the day would come, small town problems. When the breakup first happened, I remember going out to the local bars hoping to bump into her, dressed to the nines, and after time in the gym, to show off how great I've been. I finally bump into her, in a terrible outfit, oversized shirt that shows none of my hard work. Not the point of the post but figures and shows where I am in the process of grieving this. I still have feelings. She looked as beautiful as ever as well. She looks like she's doing well, and I'm happy, but, resentful that this idea I've held onto that I can win, and make her regret, isn't true. I can only improve myself for myself. I've found over the course of this year, that I still hold the idea she might come back, but she isn't. I truly must rid myself apart from my ego here. It's painful, and I need to stop believing I'm not good enough for her, but just wrong for her, and she's wrong for me. Prove to myself, that I'm good enough for anybody. The breakup may have been the most important thing to happen to me in my 20s. The loss of a great woman is a tremendous motivator, humbling, and sobering. I no longer feel the sadness I felt when it happened. I do at the moment because I haven't seen her. But a year later I'm different. The amount of time spent introspectively, trying to figure out how I can improve has been healthy, and I feel stronger and more of myself from it. But I carry wounds as well. I face anxieties I didn't know I had, lost the majority of my confidence, and rebuild myself from the lost man she broke up with. I've learned patience from this, I cannot fix everything in a day. I've learned how to deal with loss better. I can't change things sometimes that I want to happen, and I'm still a year later, figuring out how to carry this into my future. I've learned I'm not invincible. Inaction, lack of drive, and no discipline gets you nowhere, and bad things will happen as time and life flows by. As painful as it is, I thank her for doing it. I still love you, but over this next year, I plan to love myself, something I've neglected in this process. A lesson you showed me today. Stories number 20. Really new GF, 27F, invited me, 29M, to go to Christmas. What are your thoughts? So I, 29M, am an oops baby, something that my family has constantly reminded me of since I was little, because it's funny. My brother, 44, sister, 42, sister, 39, were all planned by our parents. I was the result of a drunken fun night on New Year's Eve according to my dad. I've never been close to my siblings due to the large age gap. My parents, while never mean, but never went out of their way to show me the same love that my siblings get, at least that is how it's always felt. For instance, when I was younger I was in choir. I used to love to sing, but no one in the family ever came to see me sing. I was told, we are busy, or, we have other plans, so I gave up singing. But I remember them going to my other siblings' dance things. So I gave up on doing anything other than working on my computer and playing with my friends. I stuck to just getting good with computers and in doing so, ended up in a good job where I've been working for almost 10 years now. Started at the bottom of IT and now have worked my way up to being a manager for about 15 people. However, being in IT means I have to occasionally miss out on family events as well as some holidays because where I work it's 24/7 split into 12-hour shifts. Due to this, over the years, I've been accidentally forgotten to be invited because we figured you were working without actually asking me. This has been a recurring issue with my family. Forgetting to ask me to join them or making excuses as to why I wasn't invited. However, one thing I could always rely on was being able to show up on Christmas Eve, that's when we celebrate Christmas, and still feel like I belonged, even if it was later in the evening. Most of the love I felt came from my nieces, who always think of me as the cool uncle and are always happy to see me. Happened to stop over at my folks yesterday and while there I saw my nieces, folks tend to watch them on the weekends, that's a whole different story. But my nieces started asking if I was excited for Christmas as we get to hang out in a cabin this year. I looked confused and asked my mom what they were talking about and she looked obviously embarrassed and said everyone made plans back in June to celebrate in a rental cabin in Vermont for Christmas. LOL, I kid you not, she looked at me and said, we all figured you had to work again and couldn't get the time off. So everyone figured you wouldn't mind missing one Christmas. Had they said something, I could have taken the time off. To say I was and am heartbroken is an understatement. Like I get I'm an oops baby, and not really ever thought of much, if ever, but to just be left alone for the Christmas on purpose. I mean, how does a family do that to someone? I just turned around, hugged my nieces goodbye and left, didn't even say goodbye to my mom. I pride myself on being a strong individual, especially on how my family has always treated me. But not gonna lie, I actually cried on the way home. Never in my life have I felt so rejected, especially by people who are supposed to love me. I couldn't even ask her when they planned on telling me or if they planned on telling me. What would happen if I showed up after work and no one was there? I just left. I probably should have, but I was hurting too much to really care at the moment. Now here's my dilemma. I have a new girlfriend, Zoe 27F, and by new, I mean we've only been going out and seeing each other since just after Thanksgiving. I sent her a text when I got home telling her what happened as I had to talk to someone. She kinda knows about my family, being in such a new relationship I didn't want to unload all my baggage on her. But she does know that me and my family don't have a standard type relationship. Anyway, she has invited me to go with her to celebrate Christmas with her family. I haven't given her an answer yet. In previous relationships, we were together months before the invite to Christmas ever came up. However, this is the first relationship where it's only been a few weeks, so asking people of Reddit for their advice. Would going with Zoe to her family's be a good idea? Being that this is so new, is there a potential downside? Would it be better to be gracious and thank her for the invite but decline? Or accept the invite and go? By the way, I do have to work Christmas Eve again this year, but not Christmas Day, so that's a plus, I guess. LOL. I've rambled enough, sorry this thing got a little too long. TLDR, my family purposely failed to invite me to join them for Christmas in Vermont and I just found out. New GF invited me to join her family, but not sure if I should go as it's only been a few weeks we've been together. To go or not to go, is the question. Stories number 21. The last 3 men I've dated were obsessed with me having a child. But seemingly not concerned with a commitment to me or marrying me. I have dated good men, just want to mention that. I've been engaged twice and both of those men emphasized that the relationship we were building was the priority. But the last 3 men I've dated long-term were more focused on me having a child and avoided conversations about marriage and commitment, leaving me feeling like a broodmare. Or even saying things like, if you have my child I'll marry you. Which made me feel pretty bad. Sort of, I don't really want to marry you but I'll do it if you give me what I want. Their commitment hinges on meeting their conditions rather than having a relationship based on love, respect and shared goals. Can anyone chime in on this? Your experiences. Stories number 22. My dad only cries and smokes once a year. I want to comfort him. My dad only cries and smokes once a year. My mom died when I was 1 year old. She was killed by a drunk driver. Since then, my dad has been raising me by himself. I don't know how he did it but he did a damn good job. I wasn't the best daughter but he always stood by me and always took care of everything. He was there for every important situation in my life. From my first day of school, to my homework, to my first menstruation, to my first boyfriend to my teenage rebel years. I love my dad but every year on December 23rd my heart is torn to pieces. On December 23rd, my mom passed away. Every year my dad puts on a suit and takes cigarettes with him even though he never smokes. On that day he never lets me go to the grave with him. When I was 14 I followed him secretly to the cemetery. That's when I saw him cry for the first time and my heart shattered. Now I'm 18 and every year since I was 14 I've followed him secretly to the cemetery. Right now the date of December 23rd is coming up and I can't stay quiet anymore. I want to go with him and hug him at my mom's grave. I want to be there for him but I don't know how to tell him. Please Reddit help me. This is an update to my last post. Thank you all for your advice. I decided not to intrude on his private ritual but to do something nice for him. I went to my grandmother's house to get my mom's old cooking book. It was an old purple notebook where she wrote her recipes. I know my dad loved chicken stroganoff so I wanted to make a meal that tasted like mom's. I bought a big bouquet for him on the way home. Before I started cooking I wanted to copy the makeup that my mom had at the wedding but I couldn't, it was too complicated. So I at least took her earrings and put them on. Then I started cooking and put my whole heart into the food. Dad was due home in a few minutes and I was incredibly nervous. When he walked in I gave him a big hug and a bouquet. You should have seen his face, haha. When I told him I cooked him dinner he started joking around like he always does. But then he noticed I was wearing my mom's earrings. I saw that he had tears on the edge of his eyes. We sat down and started eating. All by himself, he started talking about my mom. He never talks about mom, and if he does it's only a little bit. I finally learned how they met. He always told me this silly story that when he was out for a walk he saw crooked legs peeking out among the big grass by the lake. Well, supposedly it was my mom who was herding the geese, hahaha. Actually they met at some club when they were 16 and he was smoking outside. He told me that my mom supposedly didn't like him at first. He said he was delinquent and she was like an angel. But somehow he managed to make her fall in love with him. I wanted to dance with him after dinner. When he was younger, he loved to dance. I put on the song Mirror, My God, to the on TV. They played that song at their first wedding dance. He looked shocked again, and when I took his hand and pulled him out of the chair I saw that he was starting to cry. We started dancing and I tried to imitate the dance he and my mom had danced at their wedding. I couldn't do it, haha, but I'm glad I tried. When the song ended something happened. My dad started crying and sobbing uncontrollably. I quickly hugged him. I started crying too, and while I was hugging him I kept telling him how much I loved him, what a great dad he is, and that my mom would be very proud of him. He cried like that for about 5 minutes and I kept hugging him. Probably his emotions have exploded after all these years and I'm glad for that. I'm glad he can finally cry in front of me too. When he calmed down he thanked me for everything. We spent the rest of the evening watching movies. I'm glad I listened to your advice and didn't ruin his ritual. We now have a joint ritual on December 22nd. Today is December 23rd and like every year Dad put on his suit, took his cigarettes and also the flowers I gave him. He told me with a smile that he wanted to show them to Mom. I couldn't believe he was laughing. He always looks incredibly sad on this day, but not today. When he left I started to cry. I think my mom will be very happy to see him smiling again. I want to answer some questions you had. No, my dad never remarried. I never saw him with another woman. He still wears his wedding ring. Hell, we even have a huge poster of my mom in our living room because she worked as a model. Mom died when she was 21. They got married when they were 19. No one helped my father with my upbringing. My dad didn't have parents and my mom's parents lived far away from us. I don't know how he did it when he was only 21, but I guess it's true that dads are heroes. Stories number 23. Aita for not giving my stepdad the same grace I give my stepmom. So, I, 16F, have a stepdad, Greg, 40M, and a stepmom, Cassie, 29F. My parents split up when I was 10, and they both remarried not long after. Greg's been in my life for about 4 years, and Cassie's been around for 2. The thing is, I cannot stand Greg, but I genuinely like Cassie, even though I feel like I'm not supposed to because of how stereotypical her situation looks. First, Greg. He's always acting like he's my dad when he's not. He criticizes everything I do. He mocks my grades, which are As and BS, my clothes, my music, what I watch on Netflix, even how I talk. He's the kind of guy who lectures about life lessons constantly, even though I didn't ask. He tries to act like he's in charge of me, but it just comes off as condescending and annoying. My mom keeps saying I need to give him a chance, but I feel like I've been giving him chances for 4 years, and he's done nothing to earn my respect. Now, Cassie. She's younger than my dad, he's 47, and yeah, I thought it was super weird when they got married. Like, I assumed she'd be some vapid trophy wife type who only cared about Instagram and shopping or whatever. But honestly, she's the exact opposite. She's just genuinely nice, not in that fake, syrupy way, but like she actually cares about people. She's also ridiculously smart. Both she and my dad are professors at the same university. He teaches pre-med classes, and she teaches something artsy. I don't really know what, but it has to do with essays because she's always grading papers and writing these crazy long comments on them. My dad always says she has a mind like a steel trap because her memory is insane. She'll casually remember something I mentioned once weeks ago, like how I couldn't figure out how to explain a concept in an essay, and then she'll sit down and help me without making me feel dumb. Anyway, things came to a head this Christmas. My parents have 50-50 custody, so I split my time between their houses. This year, I spent Christmas Eve and Christmas morning at my mom's house with Greg. As usual, Greg couldn't just let us have a nice holiday. He kept joking about how I'm too old for presents and need to start focusing on the real world. He even made a comment about how Santa doesn't come for people who don't pull their weight, which felt like a dig at my part-time job not being good enough for him. I ended up snapping and saying, maybe Santa skips people who act like assholes, too, which didn't go over well. When I got to my dad and Cassie's house that afternoon, it was a completely different vibe. Cassie had made cookies, which were warm when I got there, and she gave me a gift that was so thoughtful, a few journals with prompts and a fancy fountain pen set because I'd mentioned wanting to start journaling. She didn't even make it about her, like, look at what I got you. It was just about me, which was really nice after Greg's passive-aggressive lecture marathon that morning. Later that evening, my mom called to check in, and I guess she could tell I was happier than I'd been at her place. When I told her what Cassie got me, she got all defensive and said, well, Greg put a lot of effort into making Christmas special, too, you know. I know he didn't because I know Mom did all the work for Christmas Eve dinner and bought all of the gifts. Then she went off about how I need to start respecting Greg more and how it's hypocritical of me to love Cassie when Greg puts up with more by dealing with my teenage attitude. The thing is, it's not about effort, it's about how they make me feel. Cassie makes me feel like I matter, like I'm not just some annoying kid she's stuck with because of my dad. Greg, on the other hand, constantly makes me feel like I'm failing at being the perfect daughter. My mom's guilt-tripping me hard now, saying I'm being unfair and immature for not appreciating Greg. But I feel like it's not my fault that Cassie is genuinely nice while Greg is condescending and exhausting. So, Aita, stories number 24. I, F19, was drunk for over 350 of the past 365 days. Might have even been over 360, who knows. Since this is the second last day of the year, why not share what I've been up to? I struggle with social anxiety-related issues, chronic insomnia, and just a general feeling of emptiness. I tested positive for Asperger's syndrome as a child, but my mother didn't want it on my record, so I don't really see myself as autistic. Anyway, in my earlier teen years I discovered alcohol as a cure-it-all for every issue I've ever experienced regarding my awkwardness and overall mental health. It all went downhill the exact date of my 18th birthday, as that marks the day one can legally buy liquor here. Whiskey is my personal preference. Specifically Jim Beam, but vodka is cheaper, so I drink a lot of that too. Straight or mixed with Diet Sprite, Coke Zero or sugar-free electrolyte drinks. I try to exclusively consume alcohol when necessary, to fall asleep and as a social crutch at gatherings or dinners, but from time to time I drink in the morning too. No one in my life knows exactly how much I drink in standard units, and only my boyfriend knows I drink practically every day. Honestly, an embarrassing habit, and my goal for 2025 is to get it together before I develop a liver disease by the time I'm 30. Stories number 25. My boomer father ruined the holidays and spiraling. Edit, I'm so overwhelmed by all of these comments. I thought I was posting a casual boomer story while on my lunch break and did not expect all of this feedback. Thank you so much to everyone who had kind words, advice, shared experiences, etc. It means more than you know, and I'm so appreciative. This whole post has been eye-opening for me and given me much to think about. My dad is a typical boomer, his main news source is Facebook and he has no idea what he's talking about. He is a helpless man-child whose mother did everything for him until he got married, then my mother did everything for him until they got divorced, and now I do everything for him. He can't even get a phone plan of his own because of his poor credit score and short fuse with customer service workers. My dad is pretty far right. My sister is pretty far left. I'm left-leaning but not particularly into politics. Our differing views has caused many issues throughout the years. My dad insists on talking about politics every time we see him. 4 years ago, my sister and I told my dad that we did not want to discuss politics or social issues with him anymore. It causes nothing but fights and anger, it was putting a huge strain on our relationship with him. He is entitled to his opinion, we are entitled to ours, let's just not have these conversations for the sake of our family. My dad's response was that he has the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, we aren't allowed to tell him what he can and can't say, etc. etc. As usual, it was not a productive conversation. My sister and I left after he said he didn't care if he had a good relationship with us or not. Fast forward to now. My sister and him barely have a relationship, they just see each other on holidays. They used to be really close. I talk to him regularly, because like I said, he is a helpless baby who needs me for everything. Yes, I know I am an enabler. Anytime he mentions politics, I get off the phone with him or just go home. As the election got closer, he talked more and more about politics. And just to be clear, when I say, talk about politics, I'm not talking about tax policies. He just says outrageous dumb shit like, immigrants are eating our pets. He says extreme things because he knows it'll get a rise out of me, he wants me to engage. My husband and I have had a stressful year. We host Thanksgiving and I wanted a peaceful holiday. Trump had won and I didn't want to spend my day cooking and cleaning just to listen to my dad spout his crazy bullshit and make everyone uncomfortable. I sent a text to the whole family, a long friendly text that basically said, the world has been nothing but miserable political talk these last few months. Now that election season is over, I want to enjoy a nice holiday with our family. We're asking that everyone please refrain from political discussions at our home. I sent it to everyone because fair is fair, the rule should apply to everyone. I don't think it's a huge ask to request people don't talk about one topic for a few hours. This was my dad's reaction. He sent me a text that I should have just texted that to him, since clearly it's targeted at him. Then he said he is not coming to Thanksgiving and that he has nothing more to say. That is the last thing I have heard from him, 2 months ago. Then he wrote me out of his will edit because it keeps coming up. Obviously he likely has nothing to his name, his will is just this vague thing he likes to hang over our heads. I don't care about the hypothetical $13.84 in his savings, it's the symbolic gesture that bothers me, changed his beneficiary, changed his power of attorney, etc. He stopped speaking with me and didn't come to Thanksgiving. He refused to go to Christmas because I would be there. All over one text. He has written me out of his life because I asked him to not talk about politics for a few hours. Part of me is heartbroken because he's my father and is throwing me away so easily. Part of me is angry because I do so much for him, I put up with his bullshit because no one else will. Part of me is worried because this reaction is so extreme. Is it mental decline? Emotional issues? Something else? Mostly, I'm just frustrated and hurt. Stories number 26. Am I the bad guy for kicking out my roommate after what she did to me? My roommate, Megan, sold my cat, Luna, without telling me. Luna has been my companion for 3 years. She's a calm, affectionate cat who helped me emotionally after going through a tough time. When Megan and I decided to move in together, I made it clear that I had a cat and that if she wasn't okay with it, we couldn't live together. She assured me it was fine. At first, everything was great. But over time, Megan started complaining about Luna shedding fur and occasionally leaving litter outside her box. I tried to be understanding, I vacuumed more often and cleaned up immediately if Luna made any kind of mess. Still, Megan kept saying the cat didn't fit in our space. One day, I came home and Luna wasn't there. I searched the entire apartment, thinking she might be hiding, but she was nowhere to be found. When Megan came home, she casually told me she had found a great home for Luna and that it was for the best because I was too obsessed with the cat. I completely lost it. I yelled at her, telling her she had no right to make that decision, and I demanded to know where Luna was. At first, she refused to tell me, but after hours of pressing her, she finally admitted she had sold Luna through an online ad. I spent the entire night tracking down messages and eventually found the person who had bought Luna. I had to pay them more than double what Megan had charged just to get Luna back, but at least she's home with me again. After that, I gave Megan a week to pack her things and leave. Now she's telling all our mutual friends that I was overreacting, and that it wasn't a big deal since Luna was in good hands. Some of them even think I should have given her another chance because finding housing isn't easy. Am I the bad one for refusing to live with someone who betrayed my trust like that? Stories number 27. Aita for telling my wife she can leave because I'm not kicking my older kids out. I, 43M, have been with to my current wife Amanda, 42F, for the past 6 years and we have 2 daughters, Becca 4F and Eliza 2F, together while I have 2 kids from my previous marriage Liam, 17M, and Sage, 15F. The divorce was less than amicable and since my ex-wife had more money and a better paying job she was awarded primary custody despite me fighting it. For the last 8 years I've had my older kids every other weekend and on Wednesdays. A few weeks ago my older kids asked if they could live with us full-time due to issues with their stepdad. Liam especially had come to blows with him a few times and even their mother thought it would be for the best. I did talk to my wife about it and I know she wasn't happy as she feels uncomfortable around my older kids, although this is something she neglected to tell me until we had our first child together. Things since Liam and Sage moved in have been hard and as much as I'd love to get some family therapy my wife is against it and we're on a waiting list. Before when my kids would come over my wife would take our daughters to her parents a lot to give us space even though I never asked for it. Now don't get me wrong, I'm sure being a step-parent is difficult but my kids are really good kids. They have straight A's, lots of friends, play sports, and are incredibly respectful. I know I'm biased but people go out of their way to tell me these things. So it has been terrible watching Amanda nitpick everything they do, almost as if she's waiting for them to slip up so she can send them back to their moms. We had already gotten into an argument over the holidays due to her trying to push them out of our traditions. Our older daughter Becca is going through a biting phase. Her school wants her to get OT and I've been working with our insurance since Amanda doesn't like the one at the school but as always it seems like there's an endless waitlist. So obviously the house is tense and we've all been walking on eggshells. Then yesterday morning when I was making us some breakfast we heard a scream and Becca came into the kitchen crying and saying that Sage hit her. Amanda ran into the den where Liam and Sage were and started screaming at them to leave. She was obviously pissed but Sage told her she was sorry, she had been done with the TV so had changed it to one of the girls' shows and Becca got excited and bit her. She said she didn't mean to slap her and felt bad. I immediately calmed down because I think anyone has been there but Amanda didn't believe her. Sage had a bite mark for God's sake. Things continued escalating and our girls were crying and Amanda screamed at both of my older kids to leave. Sage told her she would so she could calm down and that pissed Amanda off more. Liam and Sage left for a friend's and ended up spending the night there. So for the past day Amanda has been on one saying I needed to pack their things and send them back to my ex-wife's permanently. I can't keep dealing with this BS. I told her this morning that it was an accident and she needed to let it go but she's refusing, even threatening to call the police. She said she could never be comfortable with her babies around Sage anymore and that she didn't feel safe. I laughed because Amanda herself once hit Becca for biting her. She ended up taking the girls to her mom's and I told my kids to come back. Amanda has been texting me that she'll be back tomorrow and the kids needed to be gone. I was ignoring her but finally said this was their home and if she was comfortable she could pack up and leave. My parents came over and basically told me I wasn't wrong but shouldn't have said she should leave. I know there are some things you can take back but at this point I almost mean it. I would hate to deal with another divorce but Amanda has been so terrible to my older kids the past few weeks I honestly feel like she's become a different person. Edit just to clarify some things. When we had every other weekend plus Wednesday custody my wife would take the girls to her parents on Wednesday only, and I would take the youngest to dinner. Before we had kids she'd go to dinner but our girls aren't the best at restaurants. She would be here on weekends. My son is not violent. His stepdad believed in violence as a form of punishment which I do not and never did, but that's why they asked to live with me. Sage has gone from apologetic to fully devastated about this. She offered to go back to her mom's as long as Liam didn't have to. I told her that would never be necessary. She did not mean to hit her sister, and Becca was incredibly upset about biting her. We are working on it, but we are a single-income family and I can't afford an OT outside of my insurance. I am probably going to utilize the school's OT, though despite what Amanda said. Also our youngest was not planned but things seemed to be getting better so we were excited. I did get a vasectomy after that but I love all my children. Update: all 4 of my kids are okay and with me. Amanda is still at her parents' house. My older 2 kids have told me some disturbing things that they've been feeling since moving in full-time. It took me a while to get it out of them. They said they've been uneasy and have felt like if they put a single toe out of line they'd be forced to go back to their moms or be homeless. They've been trying to be good and perfect and nice and they're getting worn down. They say they don't know what changed in Amanda because she used to love them and be kind to them and I didn't have a good answer but I told them it wasn't their fault. My son said he's worried that she'll tell the younger ones lies about them or something else and they were uncomfortable being around the kids even though they love them. My daughter again offered to move back to her mom's if Liam can stay which broke my heart. Liam said they would live with my parents if they'd have them which hurt even more. I told them they weren't going anywhere. They said they know how upset I was after the divorce and don't want that but I told them repeatedly my marriage wasn't their problem to worry about. Meanwhile Amanda has been texting me non-stop. I've not been responding unless it was about Eliza and Becca. She has said some incredibly cruel things about me, my older 2 kids, and our relationship. Basically telling me my kids just want us to break up just like their stepdad and I shouldn't let them win. Calling them spoiled and entitled and smart asses who would ruin my life if I keep letting them. I obviously ignored that but between all this texted me a list she wrote of her non-negotiables for her to move back in. They were all pretty deranged, except one did say she wanted cameras put up in common areas, which I've already decided on and ordered. But other than that she demanded cutting Sage and Liam out of the will as they will get money from their mom. Which is insane and also it's hot like we're talking expecting to be able to leave much to anyone. The house is the one I had bought with my ex-wife, she wants to sell it and buy one to start fresh. I want to point out that when we got together I told her I was definitely going to be staying in this house until my kids went to college since it's their childhood home. And now it's our girls' childhood home so I won't be leaving. They would need to find somewhere else to live when they turn 18. Also insane because she knows I think that's trashy and they turn 18 the middle of their senior years. She did not want to have to do anything with my older kids, including family events, dinners, and vacations. And yes that would mean excluding my oldest from any family vacations, pictures, all of that. She does not want our daughters around Sage or Liam. She wants veto power over any extra time or money I'd be spending on Sage and Liam to make sure things stay fair. Probably the most deranged one was that she wants half of the child support their mom is sending put into a retirement account in only her name. It was immature, but I just did the haha thing to that text and she sent some other BS texts to piss me off. I talked to my father-in-law earlier today when he picked up/dropped off the younger girls from church. He seemed annoyed with the whole situation and referred to it as Amanda's little tantrum. Originally the girls were going to go home with them but they threw a fit. Luckily I'm off work this week to be with them. The sad thing is that Sage and Liam have been avoiding the younger girls, which is devastating for them, but I'm trying to work on explaining everything right now. I did find a therapist for my kids this week. It's out of pocket but obviously I can't wait longer. I don't know what Amanda is up to. She FaceTimed the girls earlier but I don't talk to her. I don't know how fixable this is. I told her if she wanted therapy I'd set it up and she was emphatic that was not necessary. I told her that was my non-negotiable lol. So not a great update but it's nice to get feedback. I might not update much if things go the way I think they're going, but I have to do what I have to do. Edit. Can everyone stop telling me to save text messages? I'm not stupid guys, I know that. Stories number 28. Aita for telling my partner if he's unwilling to commit I'll leave and wait for the right person. When we first started dating we had the what are you looking for discussion, everything line up, both looking to settle down and looking for marriage, both loved holidays, family get-togethers, cookouts etc. Fast forward, he hates holidays, literally ruined Christmas. When we discuss marriage he now never sees himself getting married because it's pointless. But what about saying you wanted it? I told him point blank if he couldn't see himself committing to me in that way I would walk away and wait for the right person to come along. He wasn't a fan of this and told me I'll marry anyone who comes along and he'll marry me but won't put a timeline on it. I'm sorry but I won't be a 10, 15, 20-year girlfriend. For some that's okay, for me it's a no. So, Aita. Stories number 29. My sister, F36, and I, F35, signed a 3-year lease. She got pregnant 3 months in. How do I tell her I need to move out? I, F35, moved across the country, Canada, with my son, M14, and my dog to start new. I asked my sister, F36, to join me in the city. She lived in a small town 2 hours south from where we live now. I accepted a job offer, as did my sister, and we signed a 3-year fixed rental agreement in a 3-bedroom house. My sister and I are very different people. We have a complicated, but supportive relationship. We have a lot of love and respect for one another. We also have some on-off codependency issues from our childhood. Things were going well for the first few months. We were transitioning into this dynamic and it wasn't always easy, but we found systems and ways to make it work. Everything changed 3 months ago. My sister met a man and conceived on her first date. The baby is due in April. It's a welcome surprise. My sister is experiencing a difficult start to her pregnancy, insomnia, stress, thyroid issues. We have not been getting along. My son and I can do nothing right. It's the little things compounded. My sister is also quite entitled, openly expresses and reinforces this attribute with humor. In her pregnancy, it's been worse. There's little to no consideration. For example, she's struggling with the sound in the house. She leaves her door open for her cat and refuses to wear earplugs. Instead, she demands for my son and I to vacate the living room and kitchen at 8 p.m. because she can hear us. I don't get home until 7 p.m. and need to make dinner. Another example is that I had been giving her upwards of $600 per m in groceries. I have a lot of allergies and she wouldn't accommodate these allergies, so I would often need to eat alone and buy additional groceries. It hurt me to learn that she had her groceries supplemented by the father of her unborn child, meaning that she had been asking for money for groceries that were already paid for. My salary is less than my sister's and I have a dependent. She decided that the child's father, M36, would move into this house, with his dog and his cat, and sleep in the foyer at the top of the stairs without consulting with myself or my son. This area of the house is not closed in. It's positioned above the living room/kitchen, an area that my sister has already deemed inaccessible between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., and also between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. My son and I are starting to get forced into our bedrooms off the entry hallway. They split up 2 weeks ago, and he's still moving in. He's a bit of a dirty guy and my sister is type A. To put things into perspective, she has cleaned out his house, and his 2 storage units in the last 3 months. He's not much of a cook, or cleaner. She said that I'm lucky because I get to benefit financially from this. I'll pay less in rent and I don't even deserve it. Those were her actual words. I actually like the guy. I don't like the way my sister treats him, but he's a nice guy. I moved for a lot of reasons. My son's was experiencing anxiety and self-esteem issues around his father, never married, separated after birth of our son, in and out of the picture, whom had drained our collective savings account for the kid's education because of addiction. I wasn't able to secure a suitable salary with my education to get ahead. To be fully honest here, my sister and I had a hard upbringing. The only reason I stayed in our hometown was so that my son had access to his father, and well, a time came where his father's absence would be more beneficial than his presence. I moved so that we could start a new life, and have peace. We are not experiencing peace. I confronted my sister about the use of communal spaces, and that she would have to find solutions to limit the way sound affected her. I confronted my sister about shared bills, and have asked her to post the bills on the fridge, and that we would no longer be splitting most groceries. I confronted my sister that I'm not entirely comfortable with someone moving in here. It's not within the rights of our lease and we would need to communicate this with the landlord, and ask to break the lease. My sister's response to everything has been emotional, reluctant, and avoidant. She simply cries, yells and walks away. She claims that I am abandoning her. I feel exhausted, exploited and manipulated. It's affecting my work, my personal life and my ability to enjoy life. My son is experiencing some anxiety too. He has sports and extracurricular most days after school and I am adamant to discuss adult things without my son there. However, he has witnessed some arguments and knows that we are not getting along. I want to leave this situation. I know I have to. I feel like I am abandoning her. Not just because she tells me so, but because everything is crazy and I want to leave. I didn't sign up for this. I don't agree to live with my sister, her estranged ex-BF of 3 months, and his 2 pets. I don't know where to start, how to do this. I know I need a couple months to save up for first and last. Edit. Removed some details to keep privacy intact. TLDR, my sister, F36, got pregnant after we, myself, F35, signed a 3 years fixed lease in a 3-bedroom house for us, my son, her cat and my dog. She controls the use of spaces and bills within the house. She has demanded that the father of her unborn child, M36, whom she broke up with 2 weeks ago and only known 3 months, move in the house with his dog and his cat. She didn't consult me. The landlord doesn't know. I think I need to leave. Possible sister who has found the OOP post. Pour pied noir. Hello everyone, entitled 36F sister here. Just thought I'd give y'all my side of the story because no matter how flat you make a pancake, there are 2 sides to every story. 1. I do not demand that my sister and nephew vacate the living room at 8 p.m. The request has always been, even before I was pregnant, to be quiet after 10 p.m. as I have to wake up at 6 a.m. for work every day. Very reasonable, albeit pretty difficult when my sister has this one friend that invites himself over, gets drunk and can't drive home, then sleeps in the living room snoring like a trucker all night. When I ask my sister to ask him to leave, after he's sober of course, she says, "You're the one who wants him to leave, you ask him." But I guess I possess sole autonomy of the shared living spaces so. 2. She doesn't get home at 7 p.m. every night. She works from home 3 out of the 5 days a week. She does meal prep on weekends and has not cooked supper for her or her son on a weekday in almost 2 months. 3. She has not given me a dime in grocery money since late July/early August. We used to split the grocery bill 50/50. Then she decided that her diet was too complicated so she wished for us to switch to buying our own groceries. I have been purchasing my own groceries since then. I found out I was pregnant on August 22nd, and by suggestion from my sister as a type of child support, I started accepting groceries from my partner in mid-September. I have also shared this food with both my sister and nephew when they run out of essentials. He paid for 90% of the beautiful Thanksgiving feast we all just shared together on Monday. $600 per month. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. U/C_luck_8537. I'm sorry that mom taught you that lying helps you get away with things in life. I'll keep praying that one day you're cured of this disease. 4. My sister suggested that my partner move in to help with expenses. It was her idea, not mine. I exclaimed that he's a slob, I'm nervous, I hate his dog, we're not an established couple, it will affect the dynamic in the house, etc. She stated it is likely still the best decision to make for my baby. So I relented and invited him to move in. I believed up until today that I still had her support on this decision. Ironic that the post casts me as the poor communicator who cries, yells, and walks away when I have not heard a single word about her not wanting him to move in, until now. Anyway, I don't really care to win over Redditors at this point. I haven't even read any comments. It doesn't matter to me what you all think, only what my sister thinks of me. It's so bad that she thinks she has to hide in her room or that I don't listen, and that she has to fabricate a story online to get some affirmations from absolute strangers. Sad how this situation has devolved because I love her and her son more than anything in the entire world. Remember kids, communicate with your loved ones about your problems. Don't believe everything you read online. Always use protection. Update. Posting on Reddit was an absolute wake-up call. My sister found the post. Her and her ex totally berated me in a government building conference room after hours. When I was adamant about moving out, things got substantially worse. My sister decided he would not move in, and we would both move out. I notified the landlord to give him 60 days' notice. I found a place for myself and my son. It's within my budget and absolutely perfect. With an exit in sight, things were starting to become tolerable. Come mid-November, there was still the issue of shared assets, so I braced the difficult conversation with my sister via text requesting to set a date and time to discuss things. Her actual reply was, "Suck my dick, I'm blocking you." I remember being shocked. This was actually out of character. My son and I got in late that night to find that the internet password had been changed with a message on the chalkboard that as soon as I dropped the topic of shared assets and prepay the upcoming electric bill, she would not reveal the Wi-Fi password. We live in an area without cell coverage, so I couldn't even message my sister to call her out. I'm not proud, but I went to the garage and unplugged the router, and locked it in my truck. When she came to me, she was furious. I can hardly remember what she said now. What I can say is that she was very cruel and near violent. In that verbal vomit she said, "You have no idea what I've been through, I miscarried." At that point, I asked her to give me a few minutes to process. I left shortly after, with my son and my dog, leaving the router on the porch. I'm embarrassed to say that I offered to stay the night, and keep her company. I realize now that in order to support someone, we have to ask ourselves if this is safe, if we have the capacity to offer support and if this person has the capacity to accept support. She halfway apologized a couple days later. After that, she grieved independently, and almost silently. My son and I grieved independently from her, being careful to follow her direction and boundaries of not taking about it. Weeks felt like months. The house was cold. Any level of contact or coordination was the beginning of a fight. In therapy I started to unpack the events over the last year. I learned a great deal about myself, mostly in regards to my self-integrity. I've come to understand my role in perpetuating her controlling behaviors, my lack of self-esteem which snowballed under our shared roof, leaving me in a state of ambivalence and complacency. I recognize the ways in which my sister held little to no regard to my autonomy, often using emotional manipulation to force my submission. I know this is abuse. Know that when she got cold, I got colder. I am not innocent in all this. Someone once described us as an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force. I think there are times where we play either role. I carry deep compassion and love for my sister and remain forever empathic. I remain optimistic that she will come to understandings of her own that will reunite her with her humility. I am terribly sorry for her loss, and often find myself worried about her well-being. I have hope that in time, we can build a stronger, more sustainable dynamic. I am painting my bedroom at my new place. Even with my son on the other side of the country this holiday, I feel at peace here. I wish my sister has peace too. A day will come where we can overcome some of these hardships, but that day is not today. TLDR, after my sister attempted to move her hoarder ex into our hallway, and changed her mind, we still broke our lease. We fought, we slept, we fought, we slept, and then we just stopped talking. She miscarried. I left. She was cruel and controlling. I was dismissive and stubborn. We both found more suitable living arrangements. We are 5,600 kilometers away from our family this holiday and only 5 kilometers apart, but remain alone. We are clearly FD up in more ways than one. I remain optimistic for our relationship. Merry Christmas and keep the change, you filthy animal. Stories number 30. My new girlfriend is the fucking best. A coworker and I went official a couple of weeks ago after dating for a couple of months and being friends for 3 years or so. I've never felt so secure in a relationship so quickly. I'm so used to mind games in previous relationships that her directness is so refreshing, and knowing that if I say something to upset her, she'll just tell me instead of bottling it up to use against me later. She's so clear with her feelings and it's encouraging me to be the same way, which I really need. She's by far the most emotionally intelligent and mature woman I've ever been with. She's done a lot of therapy and the difference in how she handles herself compared to my exes is night and day. And not only that, she's so incredibly supportive that I feel like I can take on anything with her help, and she's said the same about me. She's taken a massive leap of faith and put a lot of trust in both herself and me to get into this relationship. I don't know what I've done to deserve it, but whatever it is I want to keep doing it, because making her smile, feel safe and happy, and being the BF she deserves is going to be my mission from now. Stories number 31. My ex told me I couldn't manage without him. Not long after my ex moved out of our house, my landlord decided to sell the property and evicted me. Ex's name was still on the lease, because it was so soon after he'd moved out that I hadn't even gotten around to changing it yet, so I sent him a message letting him know that I needed him to sign some paperwork to confirm he had moved out. During this exchange, he told me to let him help me, because I have a tendency to fall apart when things go wrong and wouldn't be able to cope alone. I had gone back to university while we were together, so I was in a difficult situation where I couldn't get another rental agreement because my income was too low and I didn't have a stable job. Regardless, I sorted out new accommodation alone and started my new life in a new town without him, while he moved into his mom's spare bedroom. Now, just over 2 years later, I've graduated with a first-class degree, been living alone for 2 years, got a full-time job, and I'm now about to buy my first home all by myself. And he's still living at his mom's house. Stories number 32. My husband says he doesn't like my breasts anymore. I've never really had any boobs if I'm being honest, but in this last month they've grown 2 cup sizes. I've struggled with this because my body doesn't look like mine anymore. Today I decided it was time to go and get new bras that fit. When I was done I showed him them and was talking about the whole experience when he told me that he doesn't like that they're bigger. He said he's grow attached to my small boobs and is worried about me changing while he's gone. We talked it through and I thought I felt better, but now it's been about 5 hours and I'm realizing that I don't feel better. I actually don't feel good about this at all and I feel like he is doing the complete opposite of supporting me. I understand we all have our types and preferences, but it just felt unnecessary to say that. How do I approach this and talk to him about it without it being a whole fight? Or should I even bring it up after I already said it's okay? Stories number 33. Aita for refusing my father's inheritance because of his absurd conditions. Hi, I need help deciding if I made the right choice. A few months ago, my father passed away. We always had a complicated relationship. He was a very controlling man and couldn't handle things not going his way. When his will was read, I was shocked to find out the conditions he had set for me to receive my share of the inheritance. The will stated that I would receive a significant amount of money and the family home, but only if I met 3 requirements. I had to move into the house and live there for at least 5 years. I couldn't sell or rent out any property I already owned. I had to take in his dog, a massive mastiff that I've never liked, and personally care for it. While I understand that the dog was important to him, I'm not in a position to uproot my life to meet these conditions. I have my own home, a stable life in another city, and I don't want to disrupt everything just to follow his wishes. Plus, taking care of that dog would be a huge responsibility, and I don't think it's fair to impose that on me. I decided to decline the inheritance. Now, my family is furious with me. They say I'm being ungrateful, that my father worked hard to leave us something, and that I should have respected his wishes. Some have even accused me of being selfish for not making an effort to preserve the family legacy. Honestly, I'm not sure if I did the wrong thing. I don't want to upend my life for conditions I think are unreasonable. But at the same time, I can't help but feel guilty. Aita for refusing my father's inheritance because of the conditions he imposed. Stories number 34. What does New Year have to do with you getting to cut the line? Went to the provincial service office because my license plate is peeling. There was a line up about 20 people long. It moves pretty quickly on most days. This entitled woman walks in, leans against the rope and demands to have multiple questions answered about getting a birth certificate. The agent at the desk stops serving people to answer her questions. She then leaves, turns around in the entryway and realizes she didn't get her parking validated. She comes back in and proceeds to the rope again. I'm having a bit of a day because of my mother's cancer treatments and am feeling tired of entitled people. I spoke up and said in a gentle voice, I think you'll have to wait in line like everyone else. She replied that she is on a time crunch and just had a question. I said, yes, this is the reception line, we all have a quick question. You have to wait. She then said repeatedly, well, Happy New Year. So I feel a little bad for speaking up, but I'm just so tired of these people talking about the younger generations being entitled and then pulling shit like that. Stories number 35. Aita for ending things with my partner after she changed her long-term goals. I, 28M, have been in a relationship with my now ex, 26F, for about 2 years. When we first started dating, we both agreed on a shared vision of the future, settling down, focusing on careers, and eventually starting a family. A few months ago, she told me she had a change of heart. She no longer wants kids and instead wants to live a more carefree life, traveling the world and focusing on herself. While I fully respect her choices and think it's great that she's following what makes her happy, it left me feeling like we were no longer aligned. I took some time to process this and tried to imagine a life without the family I've always dreamed of, but it didn't feel right. So, I ended things. She was devastated and said I'm shallow and inflexible for breaking up over a future that hasn't even happened yet. Some friends agree with her and think I should have compromised, while others say I did the right thing for being honest about what I want. Aita for walking away because we no longer share the same long-term vision. Update, 1 day later. Hey everyone, I wanted to thank you all for the overwhelming response to my original post. I read through so many of your comments, and it really helped me feel validated in my decision. Well, here's what's happened since then. My ex, 26F, ended up seeing the post. She read through the comments, and she told me it really made her reflect on what she said and how it affected me. She admitted that she might have been too quick to dismiss our shared vision for the future and said she regrets how things played out. She's now saying she's willing to reconsider her stance on having kids and focusing on building a future together. Now I'm torn. On one hand, I really did love her, and we had something great before all of this. On the other hand, I'm worried that she's only saying this because of your comments and not because she's truly changed her mind. I don't want either of us to end up resenting the other if this compromise isn't something she's genuinely happy with. So, Reddit, should I take her back and try to rebuild what we had, or is this a sign that we're better off moving on? I'm really stuck here and could use some advice. Stories number 36. Aita for telling my wealthy college roommate to stop shaming me for my body count and claiming I use people just because I grew up poor. I, 19F, started college this year on a full scholarship. I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I'm incredibly proud of myself for making it this far. Growing up poor wasn't easy. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on, and my siblings and I often had to fend for ourselves. I've worked hard to get here, and I'm determined to make something of myself. My roommate, Anna, 19F, comes from a totally different world. She grew up in a wealthy family, attended private schools, and has never had to worry about money. At first, I thought we'd get along fine despite our differences, but as the weeks went on, Anna's comments started to feel judgmental. The issue started when Anna casually asked me about my dating history. I was honest. I've been with 60 guys. I know that's a high number for someone my age, but I don't see it as a big deal. I've always been open about my choices, and I don't think they define me. Anna, however, clearly thought differently. Her jaw dropped when I told her, and she immediately said, "Wow. That's a lot." I guess that kind of makes sense, though, considering where you come from. I asked her what she meant, and she said, well, people who grow up with nothing often look for validation in other ways. That comment stung, but I brushed it off, thinking she didn't mean any harm. But over the next few weeks, Anna kept making passive-aggressive remarks. If I mentioned going on a date, she'd say, "Another one? Do you ever stop, or don't you think you should take a break and focus on yourself?" One night, we were hanging out with some mutual friends in our dorm, and Anna brought it up again. She said, "It's just wild to me how different people's values are. I could never imagine being with 60 guys. But I guess if you grow up without much, you don't really learn self-respect." I was humiliated. I told her to stop judging me, but she doubled down, saying she was just trying to help me see my worth, and that I could do better for myself. Stories number 37. Aita for refusing to lend my phone to a stranger at the gas station. I stopped at a gas station last night after work to fill up my tank. While I was pumping gas, a guy walked up to me and asked if he could borrow my phone to make a quick call. He looked a little disheveled and didn't explain why he needed it, which immediately made me a bit wary. I told him, "Sorry, I don't feel comfortable handing over my phone." He got annoyed and said, "Wow, really? It's just one call. You can even hold it while I talk." I apologized again but stuck to my decision. He muttered something under his breath about people being selfish and walked away. I kept an eye on him as I finished pumping gas, and he eventually went into the station store. I felt bad afterward. What if he really needed help? But at the same time, it's my phone, and I don't think it's unreasonable to be cautious, especially at night. Was I being too paranoid, or was it fair to say no in that situation? Stories number 38. AIO that my sister announced her pregnancy during my ectopic miscarriage and then called me selfish for being sad about it, just looking for a gauge of how others might feel in this situation. A summary of what happened: my wife and I have been trying to conceive via IUI for half a year. Got a positive pregnancy test, our first, at 18 days post-ovulation, just after Thanksgiving. We were over the moon, stayed up all night together envisioning the future, planning how we'd tell our families at Christmas, etc. My first HCG, pregnancy hormone, was a bit low, worrying, devastating, but then the next 3 all doubled, which my doctor said was really promising. We returned to feeling hopeful/optimistic and decided we were normal pregnant. At 5W5D, I started having intense cramping and pain near my left ovary. Over the next few days, the pain became excruciating. I went in for an emergency ultrasound, and they couldn't find the sac in my uterus. We were devastated. The pain continued. Unbearable pain. I was prescribed oxycodone. 3 days later, an ultrasound found the embryo attached to my ovary. I got methotrexate, chemotherapy drug to kill the embryo, at 6W5D. I felt numbed by the loss. My wife and I then went to my family's Christmas. 1 week together at the cabin. We put on happy faces as best we could so as not to bring down the festive mood. The day after Christmas, I learned I wouldn't need a second methotrexate shot because my HCG levels had dropped by enough of a percentage that one was likely to do the trick. We were so relieved, because the first shot had made me feel so crappy. My sister, with whom I have a close relationship, was also trying to conceive with her husband for their first child. I kept her apprised of every detail of my experience from the first HCG level onward. She was nothing but loving and supportive during the nightmare my wife and I were going through. 3 days after Christmas, 7W4D, at a restaurant with my entire family present where everyone knew of the hell my wife and I had been going through, my sister and her husband announced that my sister was 7 weeks pregnant. My wife and I had the same immediate emotional reaction of out-of-body grief and shock and hurt. I immediately began to cry quietly. Other people excitedly began to ask my sister and her husband questions about how far along they were, etc. Then my wife suggested we step outside to gather ourselves. We cried together for 5 minutes. We were both trembling with hurt at being so blindsided. We returned to the restaurant and, while crying, I explained to my sister that I was so happy for her that she was pregnant, but that her telling us in that way made me feel incredibly sad for what we're going through, as I'm still technically pregnant, I'm in the middle of a miscarriage, etc., and apologized for the crying. My wife told my sister that the timing may have been a misjudgment. My sister appeared furious at my wife for saying this. We endured the rest of the dinner in agony. I felt like I was receding into myself. I was in shock at the insensitivity of my sister and her husband. Upon returning to where my family was staying, everyone in my family was chatting as if nothing had happened. My wife and I were in a daze. We felt overwhelmed with hurt. Our plan was to return home early the next morning. My sister then approached me in the bathroom and said she was so hurt by our reaction, that she could never get that moment back, that we ruined it for her, and that we selfishly made it all about us. I expressed that I was hurt by her announcing her pregnancy while I was still physically experiencing a miscarriage. I said I was happy she was pregnant but that it felt so inconsiderate for her to not at least tell me before announcing her pregnancy in a public group setting. She said she had considered our situation, and that she honestly thought I wouldn't react that way. She also said she asked her best friend for advice, and her best friend said that if I really loved her, I'd only be happy for her. The conversation ended. We left the next morning. It has been 2 days, and I have not communicated with my sister, nor has she communicated with me. I am on my 12th day of bleeding, and my OB says once my HCG levels are 0, the bleeding will stop. I think the next step is to see if my tube was damaged, and wait 3 months before trying again, due to the methotrexate. Am I overreacting? What would you do in this situation? It feels horrible for me to not be supporting my sister in her first pregnancy, but my wife and I are so hurt by her lack of empathy to our situation. My instinct is to try to have a group therapy session with either my sister and I or with my sister, her husband, and my wife and I. I feel for her that her special moment was indeed ruined by our reaction, and I feel sorry for that. But I also feel that she has all the information to make it so that hadn't happened. Edit. 1. My family all lives in the same metro area and we get together frequently. 2. I told no one but my sister about the pregnancy until we learned it was an ectopic miscarriage, and then I told my immediate family only as we were about to spend a week together in close quarters. 3. It's not really the news of the pregnancy that hurt me, but the way my sister decided to tell us about it. Stories number 39. Aita for not saying in word and just walking out on my husband. I haven't had a second to myself aside from a shower since our middle was born 5 years ago. My husband takes me nowhere and uses the cop-out that no one will watch the littles. I haven't been to a concert since I was 12 weeks pregnant with my 5-year-old. Everything I do revolves around the kids. And forget about me getting a job because my husband constantly accuses me of cheating while I'm working. Even though I've literally never given him a reason to believe I would do that. Anyway, I hit my limit. Our 5-year-old has behavioral issues that came from I don't care where. He hits and talks back no matter what I do. And it hit its peak Friday. Middle kid was a holy terror, the baby was screaming and clingy, I was overtouched and there was too much noise and too many things I needed to do, and my oldest was antagonizing the 5-year-old for some unknown reason even though he got an Xbox and a laptop for Christmas to keep him busy. My husband took his daughter to urgent care, then took her to her mom's after, and then went to a friend's birthday dinner thing until 2 in the morning. I woke up pissed off yesterday. I wanted quiet before my online writing group at noon. I wanted to sort laundry, get dinner in the crock pot, let middle kid ride his dirt bike and take my oldest to robotics and then do my write-in. My husband decided he was going to deep clean his car, and when I told him to watch the baby so I could do the laundry and start the crock pot, he went off on me that whenever he has a day off I drop the baby on him and do whatever I want to do, so no, he wasn't gonna watch the baby. So she did laundry with me, then my middle son was chomping at the bit to ride his dirt bike, so I forgot to start the crock pot so I could watch him ride it. I had to chase the baby up and down the street because she wanted to play on his bike too. Even when my husband was done, he just stood there taking pictures of our middle son instead of taking the baby so I could finish what I needed to do before taking our oldest to robotics. Then it was time to go. I told my oldest to get my keys so we could go, and my husband had the balls to say, "You're not taking the baby." So I took the baby with me. When I got back I needed to use the bathroom, and the second my husband rolled his motherfucking eyes I lost my shit. I put the baby in his lap, went pee, grabbed my laptop and took off. I never got to do my write-in yesterday, and I drove so far into the mountains I had no signal until I came back down, where my phone just started buzzing and buzzing, so I stopped, got myself something to eat and just read through the texts my husband left me. I'm a bitch. If I wanted to be single I shouldn't have married him and had the kids. I'm a raging asshole for leaving. I must be off cheating with someone. I better not come back to the house, was his last text. I went back. He hasn't talked to me all day today. But last night he tried going off on me, and I told him if he doesn't let me have a break I'm leaving, so we'll have split visitation and I'll be sure I get a break for a couple days. Aita for leaving for a few hours yesterday. Gonna edit to clarify a few things. We did things and went out and everything before I got pregnant with our middle son. When our middle son was 6 months old the plodge happened, and since my husband is a CNA we kept ourselves pretty isolated even when lockdown orders were lifted so his patients wouldn't catch COVID from us specifically. I thought after COVID sorta mellowed out in our area that we would go out again, but we went out just me and him less and less and took the kids everywhere, and then I got pregnant with our baby and he turned into a total asshole. Wanted nothing to do with naming her, going to ultrasounds, picking stuff out, nothing. This has been building up since COVID, but more so since I got pregnant with the baby. Stories number 40. My 25M, girlfriend's 25F, sex drive has completely disappeared. Pretty much the title. I'm very concerned about her at this point and I have no idea what to do. Back in April-ish, we were having sex 2 to 3 times a day. We live in an apartment together. She's been taking online classes for her master's and I'm working from home since the lockdown started. At some point, she got really busy and tired with a project, so we obviously stopped having sex temporarily. Since it's gotten over though, which was nearly 4 months ago at this point, she's turned me down every time I've tried to initiate or set the mood for sex. I have never pressured her. I usually wait a couple of nights before asking again when she tells me she's not in the mood, which turned into waiting a week, which turned into waiting 2 weeks. At this point I'm really concerned. We've never gone anywhere near 4 months without sex before. We've both always had pretty high sex drives. At this point it's important to note that I do not press the matter or pester or pressure her in any way. The moment she says she's not in the mood, I back off immediately. I don't think I've fucked up anywhere because she's always quite apologetic when she turns me down. Our relationship is pretty much perfect in every other way too. We cuddle and hug and have game nights and movie nights. It's never felt like we're drifting apart at any point. She hasn't been behaving differently, like she's upset or depressed. We give each other plenty of space too. It's not like we're constantly together. We have our own friend circles and we curl up on our own devices from time to time. I've tried talking to her about it, but she gets really upset and keeps insisting that nothing is wrong. I drop the matter pretty quickly too because I don't want her to feel like I'm pressuring her to have sex. I just want her to let me in and tell me what's wrong. I honestly don't care about the sex, but I know there's something she's not telling me and it's gone on long enough that I'm getting extremely worried about her. Update, 3 days later. Thanks to everyone who replied to my previous post. There were some mixed responses, with some people suggesting I insist on addressing it with her because she's hiding something, with others recommending I give her time to open up on her own. Ultimately I decided to sort of go for a combo of the two. Friday, when we were both done with work, we sat down and had a discussion. I told her that I could give her the space and time she needed till she was ready to talk to me about it, but I couldn't leave it unaddressed. She needed to acknowledge that there at least was something that she didn't feel ready to tell me, and that was fine, but she at least needed to acknowledge its existence, if only so I stopped feeling like I was going crazy. She started sobbing when I was done and then she started explaining everything. Some background that I didn't mention in my previous post because it didn't really seem relevant is that my girlfriend has PCOD. One of the consequences of this is that she finds it very difficult to lose weight and has been insecure about her body for most of her life. About a year ago, completely of her own choice, I have always told her that she's beautiful to me no matter what her weight. She resolved to start losing weight, both for her health and to feel better about her body. She started going to the gym a couple times a week, and I was supportive and also cut out all my own junk food consumption in solidarity. Since the lockdown started and gyms shut, apparently she started slowly gaining some weight back due to stress eating and lack of exercise. I am ashamed to say I did not even notice that she was torturing herself over her weight all this while. She admitted that she stopped having sex because she was terrified I would stop finding her attractive after seeing her naked. I reassured her that I think she's gorgeous and attractive no matter what, and I tell her this every day, but she was afraid that would have changed once I saw the weight she had put on. The rest of the conversation consisted of me reassuring her that she's beautiful and her appreciating but not really believing me. After a bit, she asked me to change the topic, and I reluctantly agreed. We had a fairly quiet dinner. She was a little sad and relieved at the same time at having told me, I think. And I was busy scheming. The next morning before work I told her she looked lovely again and she gave me a wan smile, like she appreciated it but didn't really believe me. But that was okay. I was gonna convince her. I asked her to pick up the groceries that evening because I was gonna have a meeting run late. The moment she left home, I got to work. I dug out some fairy lights and a bunch of candles from storage and started setting them up in the living room. Made a couple of playlists and charged the speaker. Snuck down to the florist and bought a giant bouquet. Some more background: I hate dancing because I suck massively at it, while my girlfriend loves it. She used to go dancing every month or two with her girlfriends before lockdown. I'd join in sometimes because it was worth how happy it made her, but she definitely missed it way more than me. So when she got back, naturally I greeted her with what were probably the most ridiculous dance moves in the history of mankind. I'm not gonna lie, folks. She laughed. She laughed a lot. She took a short video, and we both laughed while watching it later. My movement resembled a 5-year-old practicing kung fu more than it resembled dancing, and I had stuck a rose in my ear for maximum ridiculousness. Totally worth it, though. I have no idea how she ever thought she's ugly. Her smile is just so fucking radiant. We danced like idiots for a while before I switched to the slow dance playlist. It was definitely the happiest I'd seen her in a long time. I'd been a bad boyfriend and somehow missed how much she missed everything else. I should have done it months ago. I told her all this. Told her she's the most beautiful woman in my eyes and always will be. And yeah, we had sex. Last night was all about her. She needed to feel special and I had been missing that for too long. I offered to make dance nights a weekly thing afterwards. Kind of as a substitute for the workouts she's been missing, if she wants. She tore up a little. She knows how much I hate dancing. She told me that wasn't necessary. Apparently sex is just as much of a workout as dancing. And we have a lot of missed workouts to catch up on. I'm certainly not complaining. In all seriousness though, I'm gonna dip into my savings a little and order a home treadmill. She can't afford one right now because of college bills, so I'll surprise her with it. Smiley face. Thank you to everyone who helped me out with their advice. Edit. Oh wow, I am completely overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support here. Thanks for all the awards. I just logged back into this account but I promise I'm going to read each of the replies. One thing I saw pop up a couple of times that I just want to reassure you guys about is that she's mentioned wanting a treadmill but not being able to afford one several times in the past, so I know she wants one. However, I figured that it's dumb to take the chance, and one surprise was good enough, and if there's anything this whole experience has taught me, it's the importance of communication. So I'm going to bring it up at dinner tonight that I comfortably have enough saved up to purchase a home workout machine. Since I saw elliptical being mentioned, we'll figure out which one we want, and that I'd love to buy one for our home for both of us to use. Thank you all so much once again for your advice. Edit 2, RIP me LOL. The comments are coming faster than I can read them now. There's no way for me to reply to every one of them, unfortunately. There are a lot of fantastic suggestions for diets, exercise machines, dance classes and everything in between, so thank you so much for all of them. She has a great endocrinologist, whose advice she will ultimately be following, but there are some great points to bring up with him. It is really touching and overwhelming to see all this support. Thank you all so much. Final edit. She loved the idea of getting some equipment to do our workouts at home together, so we're going to sit down and do our research tonight before picking the one we like most. To all the people who commented to insist she's cheating on me because I'm a simp, LMAO, thank you for setting the exemplary standard for being macho. Insulting strangers online is so delightfully masculine. The lovely folks who told me to dump her because she's fat get the disappointing but not unexpected shitheads shout out as well. For the overwhelming majority of people, though, I am just breathtaken by the kind and supportive comments we've gotten. Thank you for the treasure trove of advice and LPTs, and all the love. You folks are amazing. Update, 4 years later. Hi everyone. I spotted an end-of-year email from Reddit for this account, which reminded me of the existence of this throwaway, and I decided to do a quick Christmas Eve update on my profile page in case anyone was still interested, because a lot has happened in 4 years. We're both doing well. We got engaged about 3 years ago and adopted a cat, but it went a bit downhill from there because of a bunch of different health issues that hit her consecutively. She's largely recovered from the temporary ones, and the permanent ones are a lot more under control now thanks to regular health checkups and medication, but it was a rocky couple of years, not for our relationship, just for us in general. All the medical issues also meant she hasn't worked since, which isn't an issue financially but for other reasons which I'll come to in a moment. She's doing a lot better mentally now as well, at least relative to last year. She still struggles with self-esteem and feeling like a burden to her loved ones, especially me, especially because of the aforementioned lack of work over the last few years. She's a lot more communicative about these things now though instead of bottling them up, so she's not let our relationship suffer for this. And I like to think that even if her self-esteem hasn't gone up, her way of coping with it is a lot healthier now, and that's an important step in the right direction. She's even been looking to get back to work over the last month or so, despite the challenges of low self-esteem, severe imposter syndrome, and having to explain a years-long absence, and I'm really proud of her for not just giving up after the hand she's been dealt health-wise. I'm doing really well. I switched jobs and fields about a year back and I'm making a lot more money now, and I'm enjoying my work a lot more too. I actually started therapy recently as well, because there were some personal discipline issues I wanted to fix, and I ended up discovering a whole host of other issues I had repressed, and bringing them back out into the open and dealing with them has been simultaneously terrifying and liberating. But it's also made me a much better friend and partner, so looks like I'm gonna have to keep braving them for as long as it takes. As for the biggest one, as is probably obvious from the title, we got married 2 months ago. We would have done it a lot earlier if she hadn't had a bunch of health issues pop up unexpectedly, but with her on the mend, we were finally able to plan and organize the thing so everyone we wanted to be there could be there. I honestly sometimes still find it surreal, like WTF I'm a husband. It still feels like I'm dreaming sometimes and I'm still that clueless wide-eyed college kid, but I look at the woman sleeping next to me and I remember all the ways I've changed for the better, all the ways I've grown up because of her influence, and I feel really lucky to have her. And I know that I, and she, still have a lot more growing up to do, but I'm feeling this overwhelming contentedness within because we get to do all that growing up together. I don't know if I'll update this again, maybe if I get reminded of this account sometime in the future, and something major has happened since. Until then, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays everyone, and I hope the new year is your best year yet. Stories number 41. Neighbor's pit bull has been escaping into our property for 2 years causing damage and killing cats and nothing is being done about it. We've called the police and animal control over and over again during these 2 years. Animal control has very few workers for the entire county, and apparently close sometime around 8 p.m., which is the majority of the time their dog escapes, almost like they plan it. So typically it's the police that come, most don't really care too much. In fact, the last group of police that came told us the neighbors are allowed on our private property even with "no trespassing" signs up any time they want if the reason is because their dog is loose, despite it happening for 2 years. Like they intentionally do it so they can trespass. We were also told that any photo or video evidence doesn't prove anything. Like WTF. The few times we actually catch animal control, we've had one total time they actually got a couple of fines given to them. Any other time, not a thing. This last time, they were given yet another warning because it's the holidays. And now, a few weeks after that, their dog came over and killed another cat. This is at least 3 now that occurred on our property. Who knows if they've killed anyone else's cats or chickens or whatever. This is absolutely ridiculous and it seems like we have no options at all. Stories number 42. Aita for telling my wife to go North Carolina with her family after they invited her abusive ex on her birthday. I am 25 and my wife is 27, actually she isn't my wife yet, we will get married in May, so I will call her my wife because we both already consider each other as husband and wife even though we aren't officially, yet. I have been dating my wife since past 2 years and my wife is kinda emotionally fragile, she is traumatized a bit, she told me early on that her ex has been verbally abusive and was rough on her, even when we were dating she was hesitant and during sex she would ask me to go slow. We are comfortable now but on her birthday which was 24 days ago, my soon-to-be Mill and Bill invited her ex on her birthday and in my home. I was pissed cause I knew what he did to my wife. My wife immediately grabbed my hand when she saw him and she was scared. I asked him to get out and my wife's family started convincing me but I didn't listen and I kicked them all out. My wife is hurt even after almost a month and I did my best to help her. We both decided to not invite them in our wedding and cut them off. But they are saying through texts that I am going too far and manipulating her and they want to reconcile with my wife and I am keeping her away from her family. I asked my wife and she said she wants to stay away from them for now and wants to celebrate this year being officially married to me and she hates them for inviting her ex on her birthday. Me and my wife has no problem with our decision. We are couples, we make our decisions together, but I am not feeling good about splitting my wife from her family and they are saying that I am manipulating her and send me texts about how evil I am. I tried to tell them that I just want to do what's best for my wife but again they repeat the same shit. Update, 2 days later. TLDR of my previous post, my wife's family invited her abusive ex on her birthday and she already was traumatized and she got even more traumatized after she saw her ex so we decided to cut them off. But they kept sending me texts that we shouldn't cut them off. We aren't married yet but consider each other as husband and wife and my priority is death my woman. After we both decided to cut her family off my soon-to-be Mill showed up at my place today and she said that I am manipulating my wife and she just wants to have a good relationship with her future son-in-law and her daughter but I am being unreasonable. I asked her if she loves her daughter so much why did they bring her abusive ex in our home? Did she expect us to just go through with it? My Mill apologized and said that X is family as well and they wanted to involve him and he wanted to apologize but I kicked them out and she wants to be in her daughter's life and her grandchildren's life and she will never bring her ex in front of my wife and even willing to cut him off. I asked her if she's so important why would you bring your daughter's abuser in her home and on her birthday? You cause so much pain to her and she doesn't want to talk to you right now and what man hurts a woman as sweet and kind as her? She was abused and she is still scared and now not only her partner betrayed her even her family betrayed her. I asked her to leave and told her that I will talk to my wife and we will get back to her. After she left I told my wife everything and she was shocked but she said if her mother is sorry and promising us that X won't get involved in our life she is okay with it. I told her that we should wait and after what they have done we don't know if they manipulating us or are genuine with their intentions. My wife agreed. She's still angry and sad but I am helping her as much as I can to uplift her mood. But I don't know if my wife should be in their life. I can't tell her what to do but as her man I feel like I should protect her after what they did and we trust and communicate with each other and we don't do something unless we both agree on it so I am wondering what I should do. Stories number 43. I broke up with my girlfriend and she told me she is pregnant. I don't want to be with her. I, 22M, broke up with her, 23M, about 2 days ago. Today she called me, crying and vomiting. She told me that she's pregnant and she sent me a bunch of positive pregnancy test photos. She's really scared. I'm also scared but I'm trying to act like I'm not, for her. I'm trying to comfort her and tell her everything is okay and we're going to get through this. The truth is I don't want to have a child with her. We fight so much, she tries to control me, what I do, what friends I'm allowed and not allowed to hang out with. I broke up with her because she tried telling me I'm not allowed to hang out with my best friend of 10 plus years. She wants to get married, she says she won't live together if we aren't married, and she doesn't want to raise the child in separate households. There is no way in hell I'm comfortable marrying her with the way that she acts right now. Overall I'm just kind of lost and trying to act like it's all okay, and that we'll get through this, but in reality, this is the last thing I want. I have an extremely demanding career field and am about to start a new job in about a month. I will be working a ton and I'm not sure where to go from here. Really this isn't an Aita post, I'm just kind of seeking advice and some opinions of others who may have found themselves in a spot like it, or the advice of the general population. Thanks. Stories number 44. Me 24M and my girlfriend 26F fought over presents. So my girlfriend complained about all the presents I got her for Christmas while she got me nothing. She is broke but has money in a portfolio from her grandpa who was rich and she has cash lying around her house here and there. We've been in a relationship for almost 2 years and she kept saying everything I got her was bad. I'm returning the Vans I got her. I got her a beanie, chocolate, baking utensils that she asked for and a nice necklace. I felt bad she didn't like anything even though she didn't get me anything so I ordered her a pair of Doc Martens which she picked out. Today she has been arguing with me, saying I ignored her all day even thought I was at work and it was 11 a.m. when she texted me that. She then continued to talk about how the presents I got her were bad. This really upset me. She got me nothing. I said to her, you moved money from your grandpa's portfolio so you can DoorDash yourself food but couldn't take $50 out to make me happy. She then went on saying I should be impressing her, not the other way around. She then said that she doesn't want to do anything for anybody, including me. How would you deal with this? Stories number 45. I've been secretly funding my sister's dreams for years, and my family thinks I'm selfish. I, 29M, have a younger sister, 24F, who's always been the golden child. Growing up, my parents always favored her, she got the best of everything while I had to fight for scraps. Don't get me wrong, I love her, but it always stung to feel like I was just an afterthought. Fast forward to adulthood, and I'm doing okay for myself. I have a decent job, live modestly, and keep to myself. My sister, on the other hand, has always been a dreamer, a writer, an artist, a filmmaker, you name it. She's insanely talented, but she's never had the financial stability to pursue anything fully. Here's the thing, for the past 3 years, I've been secretly helping her fund her dreams. I've paid for her film equipment, helped her publish her book, and even covered her rent during tough months. I've funneled tens of thousands of dollars into her projects, but I've never told her, or anyone else in the family. She thinks she got a grant or some anonymous donor saw her potential. Meanwhile, my family constantly complains about how I don't contribute enough or show up to family events. They've even called me selfish for not doing more to help out. Every time I hear it, I just nod and take it, knowing they'll never understand. I don't want the credit, I just want her to succeed. Last week, my sister's film got into a major festival, and my parents were gushing about how she's the star of the family. They didn't even invite me to the celebration dinner because you don't seem to care about what the family's doing. It hurt, but I didn't say anything. Part of me wants to spill the truth, show them that I've been quietly supporting her all along, but another part of me doesn't want to ruin the illusion for her. I don't want her to feel like she owes me or that her success isn't entirely her own. Am I stupid for staying silent? Should I tell her? Or should I just let them keep thinking I'm the selfish black sheep while my sister shines? I don't know, man. I just needed to get this off my chest. Stories number 46. Aita for refusing to let my coworker borrow my expensive headphones even though she was upset. I recently bought myself a pair of really expensive noise-canceling headphones that I use for work. They help me focus in a noisy office environment, and I love them. Yesterday, my coworker, 32F, came over visibly upset because she forgot her earbuds and had an important Zoom meeting. She asked to borrow my headphones for the meeting, but I, very politely said no because I need them for work. They were a big investment, and I'm nervous about other people handling them. She got really flustered and said I was being selfish because it was just one meeting, and she would be super careful. I still refused, and now some coworkers are saying I was being unreasonable and should have helped her out in her time of need. I feel bad, but I also think it's a personal item that I shouldn't have to lend out. Also, we have single-use meeting rooms if you don't have headphones. Like what? Stories number 47. Aita for canceling a family event because they had another without me. I, 33F, was planning to attend a family function this week but called my father to cancel my attendance. I'm trying not to give out too many details to avoid anyone knowing who this is and causing more issues. But long story, we have a regular close family function before the holidays to celebrate together, exchange presents and eat a nice meal. Due to illness it was rescheduled, my parents being the middleman communicated between the kids and dates were tossed around and the date they settled on was 2 weeks later, after Christmas. I wasn't fond of the date because the day following I had a lot planned and my trip to be with family is close to 3 hours one way. My initial answer was no to the date, but they came back and said it worked for everyone else and offered to move it up to a lunch so I could get home at a decent time. I agreed. Quick backstory. A few weeks prior my sister had the fun idea to do an awkward photo shoot of the kids and grandkids and gift to our parents. I took 6 hours of my night to drive to the shoot appointment a few weeks before Christmas. I saw them 2 days later, after when the original close family function was to have happened, for a major family reunion. During those festivities, my sister drops that they are getting together with my parents the next night prior to Christmas, which didn't bother me to begin with, but as the event continued it became clear that everyone would be there except me. She kept insisting it was for the kids. My sister then also drops that she plans to give our parents the photo gift that night. I got very upset as I couldn't understand why she couldn't wait until the rescheduled date to do it together. She said since the kids would be opening presents she wanted them to have something too. I said, they're adults, they can wait. My sister said she'd video in when they were opening presents, which she didn't. She sent me a video a few hours later. My other sister approached me later that day about it after, and although still upset I said I didn't care anymore because why should I be, I hadn't paid for the pictures anyways. What upset me more is that no one even asked if I wanted to come. The next day talking to my father he stated he was making steaks for dinner before everyone arrived and we got off the phone. To me it seemed like they did the whole family event without me. I didn't watch the video my sister sent after, but the still looks like what our family Christmas event usually looks like. Talking to my father a few days later I said I wanted to cancel the get-together, but corrected and said they didn't have to cancel the event but I really did not want to attend. I'd be the only one opening gifts and we'd essentially just be getting together to eat a special meal, and to me I felt the point had been lost. I didn't go into a whole lot of details about my feels, except I did state I was annoyed by the whole situation. He didn't ask any questions, just listened and said he understood, and then turned the conversation to something more lighthearted before ending it. I cried. I am heartbroken about not going. I always prioritize family events because I've been in a situation where I can't physically be there and now take advantage of what time I can get. But I felt I needed to take care of myself. Friends suggested I go and say something in person, but I decided against that because my one sister would just turn that around and make it about her. One friend who suggested just talking to my dad kinda doused me for saying I felt the point had been lost, if the point was getting together. But I still feel like I did the right thing for me. Aita. Stories number 48. Aita for not letting my sister move in after she blew her rent money. Advice needed. Before I start, this is throwaway for obvious reasons. If you think I'm lying, I will post proof in the comments. Thank you. So I, 26F, been living on my own for like 3 years now. I worked hard, saved up, and finally got myself a nice little apartment. Nothing crazy, but it's mine, and honestly, I'm really proud of it. My older sister, 29F, though has always been pretty bad with money. She spends her paychecks on designer clothes, random trips and nights out, and then she's broke like a week later. I've helped her out a few times before, but after she forgot to pay me back 3 times I decided I was done. Couple weeks ago she called me crying saying she got kicked out of her place cause she wasn't paying rent for months and had no savings. Then she asked me if she could stay with me for just a month or 2 till she figured things out. Now here's the thing. I already know how this is going to go. She'd move and get comfy here and then keep making excuses to not leave. I told her no, that's not happening. Instead I said I'd help her find a place and even pay her first month's rent somewhere else to help her out. She freaked out and said I was selfish and heartless for not letting her stay. Then she ran to our mom, who's been blowing my phone non-stop about how I'm a bad sister and how I need to help family. My sister's also been posting stuff online about how people show their true colors when you need them the most. Now I feel kinda bad, but at the same time I feel like I'm just protecting my own space and sanity. So Aita. Stories number 49. What's with all the families used to only need one income misinformation being spread everywhere? It's been cropping up in various forms on Reddit, Facebook, TikTok, pretty much every social media, and sometimes even in self-described feminist groups, with people lamenting over how just a few decades ago it was so much easier for a family to survive on a single income, in a way that comes across as weirdly romanticizing, ignoring the elephant in the room of how much harder it was for women, or anyone other than straight white men. In fact, in the mid-20th century, what's most infuriating is the fact that it has not and has never been the majority experience in human history. The family unit with a man working for pay and a woman taking care of the home and children has pretty much always been a middle and upper class status symbol. Working class families didn't have that choice. They needed as many pennies as they could possibly get to survive. Sure, the man's job would be considered the most important, but the money coming in simply wasn't enough for him, his wife and several children, so the woman would have to work too, either outside the home or perhaps by taking in laundry and textile work she could do at home alongside her domestic duties. And whenever they were pregnant, back then, this would have been frequently, these women would be doing that work all the way up until she was giving birth, and then returning to that work dangerously early afterwards, because they simply couldn't afford not to. And the middle upper class woman had a set of duties scarcely comparable with the classic 50s housewife image. She'd be managing a series of servants and staff, keeping a social calendar together, organizing family affairs, etc., a complete apples and oranges contrast to the stereotypical housewife managing a nuclear family on her own. Back to more modern times, actually listening to women aged 60 plus shows that the romanticized image of man earns enough to buy a house, run a car, go on holiday and raise several kids was rarely true even during this supposed golden age. Read that part with as much sarcasm as you like. Either the woman was working herself to supplement the family's income, or she was saving and scraping like crazy to keep the household afloat, or they made some significant sacrifices to afford having only one adult working. These were all far more common than a family that could have all those things with no sacrifice or compromise. And none of these are obscure facts. Either looking in a couple of history textbooks, for the early 20th century backwards, or actually speaking to women who were there, 1950s onwards, this information is readily available. And it feels more than the tiniest bit suspicious that at a time where alt-right and far-right movements are becoming more popular across the world, and pushback against women's rights is becoming so great, we suddenly get these posts popping up lamenting a past that never existed for more than an extremely tiny proportion of people. Fuck that nonsense. Stories number 50. I'm leaving my husband for a month and I'm having really mixed feelings about it. I'm going to try and make this as short as possible, still turned out a bit long. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm looking for some support and for level-headed ladies to tell me if I've lost my mind by doing this or not. The short of it, married 8 years, together 12 years. He moved in with me when he was 19 and I was 22. He had never lived on his own, went from his mom's house to his dad's house to my house. He has never had to be 100% self-sufficient. I absolutely have had to rely on myself and only myself more than once in my life. About 4 years ago I started a little note on my phone to leave myself reminders of those times I felt like he was forcing me to act like a mother. I never wanted to be mother to him or anyone else, ever. Never. I definitely never expected to marry someone who would force me into a mothering role. At some point over the years I thought to myself, am I crazy? Is this happening as often as I think it is? So I started this note to assure myself I'm not as crazy as I'm made to feel sometimes. Now, 4 years after starting that note, I feel like things haven't really changed and I'm just tired of it. And I'm tired of being all talk and no show. I've been saying, this doesn't work for me and I won't do this forever, for 4 years, but I've done nothing to prove that, to myself or to him. So back in October I book a rental for myself for the month of January. On Monday the 6th, I leave for 4 weeks. 4 weeks of just taking care of myself, while he manages our house including dinners for himself and taking care of our cats. He will get a chance to see what life is like without me and I will get a chance to see what life is like without him. I'm incredibly sad to leave but at the same time I feel like my hand is being forced, and I'm angry about it and anxious about it but I'm also kind of excited. I'm mad that I feel like my words over the past 4 years have fallen on such deaf ears that now this is what I'm forced to do. I'm sad because this man is still my best friend and I'm still so physically attracted to him and I just want our marriage to work. I'm excited because I haven't been this independent in a long time and I hate how codependent I've grown and I'm exhausted with feeling obligated to care about him and look after him in ways that are not extended or returned to me. I'm going through so many emotions right now. I know there are many women in my position who cannot take a month off like I can. I know I'm extremely privileged to be able to do so. My finances allow it, I'm not tied to my house by any children, and my husband is not abusive so that I'm scared to leave. I acknowledge that I am extremely lucky to find myself in the situation I am in. That said, am I making a mistake? Is this time and space apart something I might regret later? P.S. Please help me think of things to pack which I may not have thought of yet. I'll be working at home from my rental and I hope not to spend a ton of money, so I'm trying to think of groceries on top of leisure like movies, games, etc. to bring with me. Thanks for the support, sisters. ETA, the cats are not coming with me because they will not be in danger. I will be mothering their care from afar, but I do not believe they are in harm's way. If I did, I would take them, truly. My husband adores them and I am not using this time to punish him or to be vindictive, and I know he'll struggle with his emotions while I'm away. They will be a big source of comfort to him. Additionally, I don't think it's fair to uproot them from a home they love for 25 days just to bring them back. No need to distress them further. Stories number 51. Entitled Bro Demands My Biohacking Secrets for Free, then loses it when I won't share my stack. So this happened at a tech meetup the other night, and I'm still laughing about it. I'm talking to someone about my biohacking setup, glucose monitor, no tropics, some AI tracking my sleep and workouts, the usual nerdy stuff. Enter this guy, let's call him Chad, who overhears and immediately jumps in like, bro, that's awesome. Send me the full list of everything you use, brands, doses, software, all of it. I'm like, sure, I can share some basics, but my setup's really customized. You'd need to tweak it for yourself. And Chad goes, nah, just gimme exactly what you're using. I don't have time to mess around experimenting. I try to explain that it took me years to figure out what works for me, and it's super specific to my body and goals. But before I can finish, Chad straight up flips. Wow, gatekeeping much? Aren't we supposed to be helping each other level up humanity? Typical elitist tech bro move. I'm just standing there like, what? I tell him, look, I'm happy to help you get started, but you've got to figure out what works for you. This isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. Apparently, that's the wrong answer, because Chad storms off, muttering about how I'm a poser and probably making all this up anyway. A mutual friend later tells me this guy has a reputation for demanding free advice and then trashing people when they don't spoon-feed him everything. So, Reddit, was I wrong for not giving him my full biohacking playbook? Or is Chad just lazy and entitled? TLDR, guy at a tech meetup demanded my full biohacking setup, got mad when I wouldn't hand it over, and called me a gatekeeper. Stories number 52. Aita for not wanting fireworks at our apartment because they traumatize my dog. So, I, F, 26, have a roommate, Jake, M, 28, and we've been living together for about a year. Most of the time, we get along fine, but we've had some disagreements here and there. However, what happened last night kinda escalated things, and now I'm second guessing if I handled it wrong. A little background: I have a dog, Rex. He's a rescue I adopted a couple of years ago. He's the sweetest thing, but he's so nervous, especially when it comes to loud noises. And around this time of year, it's fireworks season, which is basically my dog's worst nightmare. Every year, it's the same thing: he gets so freaked out, he shakes, hides under the furniture, and sometimes even pees himself. It breaks my heart, honestly. I've tried everything I can think of: calming music, anxiety raps, staying close to him during the worst of it, but fireworks just wreck him. So, last night Jake mentions that he and his friends were planning a fireworks viewing party at our place. I told him straight up that I wasn't comfortable with that. I've mentioned before that I don't want fireworks here because of Rex. I've suggested other options like, hey, let's go watch them at a park or a friend's house, but Jake's always just brushed it off like it's no big deal. Anyway, last night I reminded him again: Jake, I really don't want fireworks here. Rex is going to be so scared, and I just don't feel right about it. And, well, he kinda lost it. He got super defensive and started saying I was being ridiculous and that I was overreacting. He even accused me of being selfish and told me I was ruining the fun for everyone just because of one dog. He was saying stuff like, it's just fireworks, calm down, it's not like we're having a party or anything. I tried to stay calm and explain, like, it's not about ruining anyone's fun, Jake. It's about my dog's well-being. But he just didn't seem to get it. He said I was being controlling by not letting him do what he wanted in our apartment. He even brought up how I'm always saying compromise about things like him playing loud music or having people over at weird hours, but that this wasn't the same. At that point, I honestly started getting really upset, because it felt like he wasn't even trying to understand. I told him, Jake, I've compromised before, but this isn't a small thing. This is my dog, and fireworks literally traumatize him. It's not just some noise. I also tried suggesting again that we go somewhere else for the fireworks, but he was pretty firm about not wanting to leave the apartment for that. He was really mad by the end of the conversation and said he'd figure something out, but that I should stop being dramatic. I've just been thinking about it all night and I'm feeling torn. He's still planning to go ahead with his fireworks thing, and I don't know if I'm being unreasonable. Maybe I should just let him have his fun, but at the same time, I feel like I'm the one being pushed aside. So, Reddit, Aita for not wanting fireworks at our apartment because of my dog. Am I being too protective, or is Jake the one being inconsiderate here? Stories number 53. Aita for telling my wife we are not going to move just because my ex bought a house near where we lived. My wife and I have been married for 3 years and together for 6. A couple of years ago, we bought a house in a pretty nice community. It was a huge investment, but the house has been worth it, and our community is very peaceful. Last week, when my wife and I were walking in the park, we ran into my ex. I was shocked because I haven't seen her or spoken to her in a very long time. For context, my ex and I dated for the entirety of high school and college, so almost 9 years. We were really serious about marriage, but ultimately we both got cold feet and broke up. The breakup was the worst experience of my life and it took me a lot of time and therapy to get over it, but I ultimately did get over it and it's all in the past now. When I ran into my ex, we were both surprised and caught up on life. My ex had bought a house in this community a few months ago with the help of her parents. My ex was really friendly with my wife too. We had a pretty short conversation and that was it. However, when my wife and I got home, my wife just completely freaked out. She said this was intentional from my ex, that she had bought a house near where I lived. She said during my entire conversation with my ex was furiously blushing. I told my wife to relax and stop overthinking this, and it was just a coincidence that my ex had bought a house in our community. The next day, my wife brought up the possibility of moving. I told my wife there was no way we were moving, especially after all the effort we took to move here. I told my wife she just needs to relax and stop freaking out for no reason. Aita. Stories number 54. AIO. Friends set me up to have sex with someone I wasn't interested in while intoxicated. I need to know if I'm overreacting. I'm currently in a state I don't live in with my friend and her husband. We leave today and I'm so thankful. Last Friday was one of the worst, most guilt-inducing things that has ever happened and I'm very regretful. For some context, the person they set me up with is my friend's husband's friend. This person was brought up kind of frequently before this event. They kept talking to me about him and stuff. Every time I shut it down and said that I am not interested. I agreed to go with them to Chicago to spend Christmas because my parents have passed and I tend to get depressed and self-isolate during the holidays. The person, let's call him Don. Don was not supposed to go to Chicago. I then found out after we booked tickets and everything. Don had asked me to follow him on social media and I did because we have mutual and I didn't really think anything of it. He messaged me saying to meet up and I said, I don't think we have a choice, as a joke, and didn't think anything of it. I'm wrong here for not shutting it down, but I know that eventually we would be going out in a group to drink and he'd be there. I didn't think it was a big deal. Anyway. That Friday we go out drinking. At first he's not paying me no mind and the night goes on until we get to the last club. He's irritated with me because I'm not really talking and I won't dance. My friends encouraged me to drink to lighten up, so I do. We ended up dancing together, but at that point I drank a lot and I smoked weed because I have bad anxiety and didn't want to damper the mood being standoffish. We all go back to a hotel, there's like 7 of us. This is where I don't really remember much. In the hotel room I go to the bathroom and when I get out everyone's gone except Don. I don't remember if I asked him where everyone went. But I just assume they went to smoke. I sit down and me and Don are casually talking and I think nothing of it. After a while everyone comes back and they ask if we did anything. I say no because we genuinely didn't. I go to the bathroom again to out pajamas on because I assume we are going to sleep. Don wasn't supposed to stay the night. But he insisted he was too fucked up to leave. When I come out everyone's gone except him again. I go to sleep and he starts rubbing on me and stuff. I'm terrified to say no to men regarding sex. I know I can say no, but in my head it's better to just go along with it to avoid conflict. I did not intend to have sex this night. After he's done, everyone comes back. When they come back they're all laughing and asking about it. My friend can tell I'm annoyed and she keeps asking if I'm mad at her. In the moment I brushed it off even though I felt gross. The next day I still feel drunk and high and didn't really think too deep into what happened. Sunday I was completely sober and it dawned on me what happened. I cried all day yesterday. And my friend kept asking if I'm mad at them. I am, but I'm waiting till I get home to cut them off. We are on the way to the airport and I'm so excited to get away from there. Am I overreacting? I know I was being extremely stupid, but I would never think they would leave me alone with a man in a room while I was intoxicated. I take responsibility for putting myself in that situation. Stories number 55. I, 22F, feel like my boyfriend, 25M, always tries to humble me. I'm not sure if I am imagining it. Recently, I was volunteering at an animal shelter with a few friends and my BF. We befriended a group of girls who complimented me and told me I look Brazilian. I didn't know what to make of it but assumed it was a compliment since they were complimenting my eyes just before saying this. I did ask my friends what they think the girls meant and they immediately said, they called you sexy because Brazilians are so sexy. My BF interjected saying, no, Brazilians are overweight and dark-skinned, so they basically called you ugly, lol. All of us looked at him in surprise because it sounded almost bitter. And it was also such a strange way to interpret that statement because why would you immediately assume a sweet group of girls would insult you when it is far more realistic and possible that they were being sweet and complimentary? I also am just so confused because why would he even assume that? Is it because he subconsciously thinks I'm ugly? I know that's not true because I get told I'm conventionally attractive and have a great body, which I've worked hard for. I've been thinking of other situations and he does this constantly. I have been through a lot in my life and I am incredibly proud of how I've persevered. When I feel good about myself, he makes it a point to say things like, don't let it get to your head. When I ask him why, he said that he backtracks and says stuff like, I don't want you to get distracted by your success and fail, so I'm just keeping you grounded. I am an incredibly reserved person who does not flex my accomplishments in any way. I share it with very few people I love, so when they don't share my excitement, and actively try to humble me, I get hurt. I also feel like this might be a misunderstanding between my BF and I. He grew up in a somewhat toxic home and I wonder if he actually does think he is helping me and grounding me. What advice do you guys have for me? Stories number 56. I feel as if my 27F husband, 30M, is a bit too friendly with my best friend, 28F, but I'm not sure if this is my own jealousy that I need to work on. How do I approach this situation? Hi there Reddit, I need some advice. I'm not sure if this is my own issues I need to work through or whether this is a genuine problem that needs addressed. I've got a friend, I'll call her Haley. I've known Haley for nearly 10 years, and she was my maid of honor at my wedding. Her and her husband, 28M, are in an open marriage. Though they're not poly per se, they do have relations with approved people in their marriage. It's not really for me, but if it works for them, then that's their business. I feel as if over the last few months, my husband and Haley have become very overly friendly. My husband was generally indifferent to her up until he realized himself and Haley play the same games and watched the same TV shows. Suddenly she's all he talks about, and who he wants to hang out with. I wouldn't have an issue with this, until the other night. She Snapchatted him, personally inviting him out for drinks, which I was a little upset about not getting an invite, as I've recently discussed how I'm feeling a little depressed as I struggle still with PND 2 years on, in therapy 4, and because we've got a toddler, we both can't go out. He went out drinking with her and her husband on Christmas Eve, and I stayed home sorting out the Christmas dinner for the next day and tending to our toddler. I didn't mind so much as he said he'd only be an hour, 2 hours max. However, it got to nearly midnight and I hadn't heard anything from him. I rang him to find out if he'd be coming home but didn't get an answer. Our toddler was getting fussy, and I still had the slow cooker to sort out, so needless to say I was annoyed. He got home nearly 1 a.m., and proclaimed that Haley took his phone because she didn't want him to go home. Her husband vouched for this, but I was extremely annoyed as he was unreachable, and if there had been an emergency with our son, I wouldn't have been able to get hold of him. Which brings us to a couple of days ago when he invited Haley and her husband to play some games on Boxing Day. She's asthmatic and says that she's ran out of her inhaler, and without a second thought, my husband offers her our son's inhaler, which she took home. He says he didn't mean to let her take it home, but didn't stop her from putting it in her bag. I was upstairs tending to our son once again and didn't get to join in the games, so I didn't know about the inhaler until yesterday. Our son is asthmatic, though normally he doesn't need his inhaler, but when he has a cold, he really struggles without one. Currently he has no cold, but he is due back at nursery next week, so I now need another prescription for him. Talking about films coming up in 2025, and the first thing my husband says is, Chainsaw Man is coming out, I can go with Haley. When I asked why not me, he says I've never watched Chainsaw Man, which is true, and I did initially think he was talking about another movie. But it was a blow a little that he didn't think about anything we could have gone to see together. When I asked him if there was something we could see, he said, well no, because one of us will have to watch our son, which again is true, but my parents have always offered to watch him for the day if we wanted to do something. I know I'm letting my feelings get in the way, but I don't want to come across as controlling, and I'm not sure if these thoughts are valid or if I'm overthinking. Any advice would be appreciated. Stories number 57. AITJ for not wanting to breastfeed my stepdaughter. I am 7 months pregnant with my first child. My boyfriend, of 5 years, has 2 daughters 8F and 0F. His second daughter was conceived while we were on a break. I don't really have a lot of family to teach me about babies and child care, so I have been learning online a lot and also attended a couple of classes being held in my area. One of the things I learned was the importance of breastfeeding and breast milk. I think it's such a wonderful thing to be able to offer that to my child when he is born because it has lifelong benefits. A few days ago my boyfriend asked me if I had twins would I formula feed or naturally. I told him I would prefer to breastfeed, and if there wasn't enough then I would supplement with formula. Then he told me he would want me to give my extra supply to his newborn daughter. He even said that since I am already lactating I can start pumping now to give it to her. I said I was not comfortable with that, but he started to guilt me by telling me that it's not fair for his child to not get the amazing benefits that breast milk has to offer. I understand it's not fair that she doesn't have a present mother, but my boyfriend and I had agreed that I will be like a good friend to both his daughters and that their parenting is not my responsibility. He was also upset because in the past I have donated blood which goes to strangers, but I won't do this for his child. I would like to clarify I only donated about 3 or 4 times and stopped because I wouldn't feel great after due to low iron. So in a way I prioritized my health first over donating to others. On one hand I understand that he wants the best for his daughter, but on the other hand it's my body. Maybe I would be comfortable donating breast milk in the future, but not anytime soon. I would want my own child fully fed and weaned off first, and I would ideally only want to donate after I'm done having all my kids, 2 or 3. I also don't want to be feeding more than 1 baby because I want to go back to my pre-pregnancy body ASAP and have the least amount to stretch marks and deflated/sagginess. AITA for only wanting to breastfeed my own child. P.S. He also said if I breastfeed his daughter, she is more likely to look like me and feel less insecure about her body. He doesn't want his younger child to be overweight like his older child. He says she feels bad that the tops I wore pre-pregnancy are the same size as his 8-year-old would wear. I told him that her and his weight issues can likely be resolved with a good diet plan and that genes don't work like that. I might be wrong though. He also said if I refuse to give the extra milk to his daughter then he doesn't want me wearing Brandy Melville because that's my favorite store, but he claims it's toxic. Stories number 58. Aita. Argument with family after my C-section. In October I had to have an emergency C-section after being admitted to hospital for complications with the pregnancy of my first child. Prior to this happening my mom had said she wanted to stay with us for 2 weeks after the baby arrived. My husband and I asked that she delay until after his paternity leave was finished as we wanted to enjoy this special time together, and I'd also benefit from her help more after he returned to work. We called home the day my daughter was born and my parents came to the hospital 2 days later to see us. My mum arrived with her bags despite the previous conversation asking for it to be just me, my husband and child for his paternity leave immediately after the birth. I mentioned that I wasn't being discharged yet and didn't know when I would be, but my mum said she was staying and that was final. My dad had dropped her off, so she didn't have her car. My husband dropped her off at our home that night, leaving me alone in hospital with the baby post C-section. It's a 20-minute car journey each way, so when my husband wasn't back after an hour I called him. He was still at home with my mum, who wanted a run-through of how household appliances worked so she could cook dinner, run a washing load, etc. I was struggling with mobility after the operation, so asked my husband to come back to help me. I was kept in for a week in total for monitoring due to complications. My mum needed a way to get back and forth from our house to the hospital whilst my husband stayed with me in the hospital room, mostly sleeping on a chair. The first day we booked her an Uber, and then when she arrived I downloaded the Uber app on her phone and showed her how to use it to get back that evening. When we finally got home from hospital I found having my mum there quite overwhelming. She had helped with cleaning the house, for which I am grateful, but she was very overbearing whilst I was getting used to motherhood and trying to care for my baby. We still had daily trips to hospital as my daughter was premature, so needed additional monitoring. At one of our clinic appointments my husband and I kind of broke down from lack of sleep, trauma from the birth and complications, etc., and it was recommended that we needed a bit of space to get into a good feeding routine with baby as she was very small at birth and also had jaundice. I text the family group chat to relay this message, and when we got home my mum had packed her bags and booked a train home for the next morning. I will admit I was slightly relieved that she was leaving, but I could see she was angry and leaving in protest rather than to help us out. We offered her a lift to the train station the next morning, but she refused and left on foot. I felt pretty lousy about how it all ended, but will admit the atmosphere in the house was a lot nicer after she had left. 2 months later my husband and I go to my parents' house for Christmas. Once my husband was in a separate room feeding my daughter, my mum, dad, and sister told me how disgusted they were that I let my mum catch Ubers and trains when she stayed with us, saying I wasn't brought up like this, and how disrespectful it was that she had to make her own way instead of us driving her. I did expect this as it was clear my mum was annoyed, but I had just had an operation and a premature baby to care for, so I think I should have had some grace here. Aita. Stories number 59. Aita for skipping my sister's birthday party to avoid my mother while I'm NC with. My sister is hosting her birthday party this weekend, and she invited me months ago, to which I had accepted. My sister is a single mom, and has been temporarily living with our mom to save some money. The challenge is I've been no contact with our mom for almost a decade now. I only met my bio mom 18 years ago, I'm over 40, and I knew she had a troubled past with addiction, drug crimes, and possibly other horrible crimes which my brother has told me about. After a few years, she tried to manipulate me, and so I decided I didn't want to be a part of her world, so I cut her off. I still have a good relationship with my 2 younger siblings, not so much with the 2 older ones, which my younger siblings also have little contact with. Basically they were all raised in an unstable and toxic environment, so they struggled. Our mom raised the 4 of them, and has screwed them all over at various times, including taking out credit cards in their names and not paying it, hence ruining their credit. The list of offenses are long. I'm the only one who cut her off after one incident because, homie, don't play that. I was raised my dad's side of the family, so stable and more traditional. Anyway, her mom originally had planned to be away for the weekend, thus I would have attended. However, plans have changed and the mom now intends to be there, but will stay upstairs with her boyfriend. I have no qualms being disrespectful to my mother, as the last time we actually met at a family gathering, she publicly made a terrible joke at my expense in front of everyone even though she knew I wasn't speaking with her. However, I would never disrespect the woman in her own home while she's there. Everyone, even criminals, deserve peace in their home. I wasn't also planning on bringing my new girlfriend so she could meet my sister, and I'd meet my sis' new boyfriend. My sister informed me of the new plans, so I just said I hope she has a great party, but I won't be attending. She still wants me to come, but I said I don't want to risk ruining her day with my drama. I also don't want to expose my girlfriend to any drama. My mother doesn't know about my life, my divorce, my new girlfriend, any of it. My sister purposely doesn't tell her anything because she feels it's her screw-up to fix with me, and respects my position. I told a friend this morning about the whole situation, and she sorta gave me grief and implying it's an asshole move, and this will hurt my sister for choosing my own ego over family. I disagree and don't see the situation as an ego trip, but I always like to see the other side for peer-reviewed analysis. So, Aita. Stories number 50. Aita. My boyfriend walked in on my sister naked and called her nipple piercing hot. So, I, 24F, am dealing with something that's really shaken me, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting. A few weeks ago, my boyfriend, 31M, and I had a small get-together at our place. We all hung out late playing games and drinking and had lots of fun. At some point everyone left. My BF fell asleep on the couch and I went to bed because he was in pretty deep, and my sister, 19F, went to the guest room. But a few days ago, I brought up to my boyfriend how my sister and I were talking about me getting a nipple piercing, and I wanted his opinion on it because I value his input. He responded by telling me that he would be supportive of it, but then he went on to say that I should get one too because it would look just as hot as hers. I thought it was a strange thing to say, so I asked him how he knew what hers looked like. He casually told me that as a joke she flashed him at the party a few weeks ago after he commented on her nipple piercing. I was a bit annoyed at my sister that she would do that, but I went on about my day. That day while my boyfriend was at his work, I brought it up while I was out with my sister. I asked her what she did to my boyfriend at the party. Her eyes widened and she started shaking her head and said she didn't sleep with him or anything. I told her I didn't want her flashing my boyfriend behind my back. Her eyebrows furrowed and she paused before saying sternly that she didn't flash him and she didn't know what I was talking about. Now I was confused. We both talked to my boyfriend after work and confronted him. After pressing him, he told us that he lied and my sister never flashed him. He said it was a stupid joke he made and apologized for it. I asked him how he knew what her nipple piercings looked like then, and he nonchalantly said that the morning after the party while he was going to work, he realized he left his wallet in the guest room where she was sleeping over, so he knocked on the door, but after no response he accidentally walked in on my sister while she was sleeping, completely naked. He said he didn't mean to look, but he noticed her right there in full view before getting his wallet and leaving. I was honestly stunned. Apparently he didn't want to bring it up because he didn't want to cause drama. I didn't even know that had happened. And apparently he's been thinking about it for weeks, considering he told me I could look just as hot as her with piercings if I got them. It feels so weird and disrespectful and makes me feel uncomfortable. I've always trusted him, but this whole situation feels like a huge breach of boundaries. Why didn't he just tell us immediately instead of letting it sit for weeks? Let alone apologize for walking in on her. And then to top it off makes a comment about my sister looking hot and then lies about it. I told him I need some time to process this. He texted me saying he wants to talk with me about this, and he said it was honestly an innocent mistake. He did apologize to my sister though, and she accepted his apology. I was really upset with him. I was seriously considering breaking up with him. I needed some space and stayed with my sister for a bit. My sister also thought about it for a bit, and she's also met with him a couple times and said he's been really apologizing over it all, and now she's telling me that this isn't really that bad and I shouldn't break things off over a mix-up. I'm still upset at him. AIO. Stories number 51. Aita for walking out of my mom's house after she forced my autistic son to eat food he hates. I'm a 32-year-old single dad to my amazing 17-year-old son, Ronnie. Ronnie is autistic, and while he's incredibly bright and has a great sense of humor, he also has specific needs and challenges, one of which involves food. He has a set list of foods he just can't handle, and it's not about being picky. Certain textures and tastes are overwhelming for him. Eggplant, asparagus, apples, and Brussels sprouts are among the biggest offenders. For Ronnie, eating these foods isn't just unpleasant, it's a deeply distressing sensory experience. As his dad, I've always done my best to respect his boundaries and create an environment where he feels safe and understood. Unfortunately, not everyone in our family sees it that way, and that includes my mom. My mom has never fully understood Ronnie's needs. She's old school, the kind of person who believes kids just need tough love to grow out of their so-called quirks. No matter how many times I've tried to explain to her that Ronnie's food sensitivities aren't a choice, she dismisses it as him being difficult or spoiled. She'll often say things like, "In my day, kids ate what they were given," or, "He just needs to learn some manners." Recently, my mom invited us over for dinner. She said it would be a nice family evening, and despite my reservations, I decided to give it a shot. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd taken our previous conversations to heart and would make an effort to accommodate Ronnie's needs. When we arrived, though, I noticed something immediately. Most of the dishes she'd prepared were things Ronnie can't eat: eggplant casserole, roasted Brussels sprouts, and even a fruit salad with apples. I felt my stomach sink. It felt deliberate, like she was trying to make a point, and I couldn't help but feel a bit of dread about how the evening would unfold. Ronnie, to his credit, tried to be polite. He sat down at the table and attempted to engage in small talk. I could see him scanning the dishes, clearly uneasy but trying not to show it. I reassured him that he didn't have to eat anything he didn't want to, and we'd figure something out afterward if he was still hungry. But my mom wasn't having it. She immediately started making comments like, "Oh, come on, Ronnie, you're almost an adult. You can't keep acting like a child forever, and you'll never know if you like it unless you try it." Ronnie looked at me, and I could see the panic building in his eyes. He tugged at his hair, a habit he has when he's overwhelmed. I stepped in and told my mom firmly, "He doesn't have to eat anything he doesn't want to. Please respect that." Instead of backing off, she doubled down. She put a serving of Brussels sprouts on Ronnie's plate and said, "Just one bite. That's all I'm asking. One bite won't kill you." Ronnie was frozen. He looked at the plate, then at me, and I could see he was on the verge of tears. I told my mom, "Enough. This isn't okay." But she kept going, saying things like, "You're just coddling him, and you're the reason he's like this." At that point, I'd had enough. I told her we were leaving, grabbed Ronnie, and walked out. He was visibly upset on the drive home, and when we got back, he told me how embarrassed and humiliated he felt. It broke my heart to hear him say that. No one, especially not family, should make him feel that way. Since then, my mom has been bombarding me with angry messages. She's accused Ronnie of being ungrateful and me of spoiling him. To make matters worse, she's taken the situation to Facebook, posting about how we disrespected her and framing herself as the victim. She claims she was just trying to help and that I overreacted. Now, some family members are chiming in, saying I should apologize to smooth things over. They argue that my mom is just set in her ways and didn't mean any harm, but I'm not so sure. To me, this felt intentional, like she was trying to force Ronnie to conform to her idea of how he should behave, regardless of his needs. The backlash has been overwhelming, and I won't lie, it's made me second-guess myself. Did I overreact by walking out? Should I have handled the situation differently? Or was I right to prioritize Ronnie's comfort and well-being over my mom's feelings? At the end of the day, I can't help but feel like I did the right thing. Ronnie's needs come first, and I refuse to let anyone, even family, make him feel less than. But with so many people weighing in and telling me I was wrong, it's hard not to doubt myself. What do you think? Am I the asshole for walking out, or was I justified in putting my son first? Stories number 52. Aita for refusing to give my late husband's possible affair baby any money. When my husband passed away almost 3 years ago, I was left to navigate life as a single mom to our then 8-year-old son. Losing him was hard, but what came after was even harder. In the years since his death, I've learned things about the man I married that have completely changed how I see him. Let's just say that if he were still alive, we wouldn't be married anymore. About 6 weeks ago, a process server showed up at my door looking for my late husband. They had a court order for him to submit DNA for a paternity case. I was taken aback. Why was this happening now, years after his death? I handed over a copy of his death certificate and sent the process server on their way, thinking that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. Not long after, a woman showed up on my doorstep with a child, claiming that the boy was my late husband's. The child was young enough that if he truly was my husband's, he must have been conceived very shortly before his death. I can't say for certain if the boy is his or not. Does he look like my husband? A little, maybe, but honestly, I didn't dwell on it too much. I told the woman my husband had passed, directed her to his grave, and thought that would be the end of the conversation. That's when she started demanding money. She insisted her son was entitled to half of my husband's estate. I couldn't help but laugh, not out of cruelty, but because the idea was so absurd. My husband didn't leave an estate. There were no assets, no life insurance, no savings. There was literally an empty bank account and $40 in cash. I told her, half of nothing is still nothing, and said she was welcome to it. The problem, though, is that she wasn't entirely wrong. While there was no formal estate, there were assets that passed outside of probate. One of those assets was a rental property my in-laws had given us years ago. The deed listed both of us as joint tenants with rights of survivorship, meaning that when he died, the property legally became mine. I've since sold it, and the proceeds are set aside to ensure my son has a secure future, including a college fund. Legally, I'm in the clear. I've consulted my attorney, and there's no obligation for me to give her or the child any of that money. Morally, though, it's a tougher question. I feel for the child. It's not his fault his parents made poor decisions. But at the same time, I have a child of my own to look after. My priority has to be ensuring my son has the resources he needs to thrive, especially given the upheaval and challenges he's already faced. A few details to clarify. My husband didn't have a will. In my state, intestate inheritance laws dictate that if the only heirs are the spouse and children, the first $50,000 of the estate goes to the spouse, and the remainder is split equally between the children. If this boy is indeed my husband's child, the estate would technically be divided 50-50ths between the two kids. But again, there was no estate. There was no life insurance, so there's nothing for her to claim there either. My son receives Social Security survivor's benefits, which cover some of his expenses, including therapy. I'm not opposed to helping this child get similar benefits if he's entitled to them, but my attorney has advised waiting until the mother officially files with Social Security. The payments can be backdated, so holding off won't impact the total amount the child might receive. Now here's where things get even messier. After some DNA testing, it's been determined that the boy is very likely my husband's child. The tests show enough shared DNA to establish that my in-laws are his grandparents. There's no way he could be anyone else's son. But here's the twist, the boy's mother doesn't currently have custody. Apparently, there was already a CPS case open when she first contacted me. She has a history of substance abuse, the same kind of issues my husband struggled with, which likely explains how they met in the first place. The child is now in foster care. My in-laws weren't deemed suitable placements for him, and I've made the difficult decision not to step in either. It's not that I don't care. I've even set aside some money in an online savings account for the boy, but it's still in my name. I don't want to risk the mother somehow getting access to it, and I want to ensure the funds are used appropriately, whether for his education or other needs, once he's older or the legal situation is more settled. At some point, I'll also have to tell my son that he has a sibling out there. That's a conversation I'm dreading. He's been through so much already, and this revelation will undoubtedly complicate his understanding of his father and our family. In the meantime, I'm still processing everything. I'm angry, not at the boy, but at my late husband for leaving behind this mess. Even in death, I'm cleaning up the consequences of his poor decisions. Am I the asshole for refusing to give this child money? Some might say yes, but I see it differently. My primary responsibility is to my son. He's my world, and I have to protect his future. What do you think? Stories number 53. Our elf on the shelf is dead forever, and I couldn't be happier. For years, Pinecone the elf was a staple in our household every December. He came into our lives when my eldest son was about 5, and at first, it seemed like a fun, harmless tradition. You know the deal, the elf arrives with a big, magical backstory, keeps an eye on the kids, and reports their behavior to Santa every night. Sounds cute, right? That's what I thought at first. Oh, how naive I was. Let me tell you something they don't warn you about when you buy one of those elves. It's not just a toy. It's a commitment. You have to move the elf every night, come up with clever scenarios, and keep the magic alive for the kids. At first, I was all in. Pinterest ideas, elaborate setups, the works. Pinecone had wild adventures, zip-lining across the living room, taking bubble baths in marshmallows, getting caught eating candy. The kids loved it, and seeing their excitement made it worth the effort. But as the years went on, the magic started to fade, for me, anyway. Pinecone went from a fun holiday tradition to a chore. Every night, I'd get into bed, ready to finally relax, and then it would hit me, I forgot to move the elf. Cue me scrambling out of bed to shove Pinecone into some half-baked scenario that took all of 2 minutes to set up. Some nights, he just hid in the Christmas tree or sat on a shelf looking smug. The kids didn't seem to notice the lack of effort, but I felt the pressure mounting. Last year was the turning point. My eldest, then 9, invited a friend over one afternoon. They were hanging out in the living room when the topic of Pinecone came up. His friend, who clearly didn't believe in the elf, decided to test the waters. He walked right over to Pinecone, picked him up, and started waving him around like a flag. My son gasped at first, clearly torn between shock and fascination. And then, something clicked. He realized nothing happened. No magical explosion, no Santa hotline alerting him of misconduct, nothing. With newfound boldness, he grabbed Pinecone, tossed him on the floor, and proclaimed, "See? He's not real." But it didn't stop there. The two boys decided to really push the limits of Pinecone's immortality. They taped him to a robot vacuum, sent him on a wild ride around the house, and eventually parked him under the couch like a discarded toy. My youngest, who was 5 at the time, stood there watching the chaos unfold. I braced myself for tears, expecting her to burst into sobs over the abuse of our once magical elf. But instead, she laughed. She laughed so hard she was practically rolling on the floor. That was the moment I realized, the elf's reign of terror was finally over. No more late-night panic attacks about forgetting to move him. No more Pinterest pressure to outdo last year's setups. No more explaining why Pinecone couldn't seem to stay away from the same shelf for 2 days in a row. So, Pinecone disappeared after that. Officially, he went back to the North Pole. Unofficially, he's somewhere in a storage bin, or maybe the trash, I honestly can't remember. I didn't think much about it after that day. December rolled around this year, and for the first time in nearly a decade, I felt a sense of relief. No elf to deal with, but of course, nothing is ever that simple. About a week into December, my youngest asked me if Pinecone was coming back. For a split second, my heart sank. Was she still clinging to the idea of the elf? Had I underestimated how much she cared about this tradition? But then she added, I think, my brother, killed him forever last year. I didn't deny it. In fact, I laughed and said, yeah, pretty sure he did. And to my surprise, she just shrugged and went back to playing with her toys. No tears, no disappointment, just acceptance. It was as if she, too, had moved on from the elf era. The thing is, I don't feel guilty about it. At all. The holiday season is stressful enough without having to deal with the additional pressure of orchestrating nightly elf escapades. Between school events, work deadlines, gift shopping, decorating, and trying to make the season magical in a million other ways, the elf was just one more thing on an already overflowing to-do list. To all the parents out there still deep in the trenches of elf duty, let me offer you some advice: don't do it. If you haven't started the elf tradition yet, don't get sucked in. It will be the bane of your existence for years to come. And if you're already in too deep, don't be afraid to let it go. Maybe your elf can have a tragic accident or decide to retire and move to Florida. Whatever it takes, free yourself from the tyranny of the elf. Looking back, I realize the elf was never really about the kids. Sure, they enjoyed it, but the pressure to keep the magic alive came from me. I wanted to be the fun, creative parent who went above and beyond. But the truth is, my kids didn't care about the elaborate setups. They just wanted to feel the joy and excitement of the season. And there are plenty of other ways to do that without sacrificing your sanity to a stuffed doll with a smug grin. This year, our holiday season has been simpler, calmer, and honestly, so much more enjoyable. We've spent more time baking cookies, watching movies, and just enjoying each other's company. No elf required. As for Pinecone, he's dead forever, and I couldn't be happier. Rest in peace, little guy. You won't be missed.